Nepal government invites Gen Z for dialogue on constitutional amendment, clarifies process as consultations enter final stage. Auditor General's report submitted to President. President Paudel flags concerns over embezzlement and calls for accountability. Nepal government pushes administrative reform for efficiency and cost reduction. Province governments downsizing the number of ministries. Nepal outlines budget priorities ahead of May end presentation. Experts raise questions over implementation. US rejects Iran's 14-point peace proposal. Nuclear issue remains a sticking point as war talks stall. And Nepal Sports Council lifts ANFA suspension. Move restores normal football governance. Good evening, I'm Diksha Wasti and this is NTV World Primetime News. We are coming to you live from Kathmandu at 1900 hours Nepal time. Elsewhere, it's 13:15 in London, 22:15 in Tokyo and just after midnight in Sydney. The details now. The government-appointed task force preparing a discussion paper for a possible constitutional amendment has called on Gen Z representatives for constructive dialogue. The initiative comes amid reported confusion ahead of scheduled talks, with officials urging all sides to engage positively. Task force coordinator Asim Shah said the objective is to incorporate suggestions from all stakeholders before finalizing the draft. He also clarified that previous agreements with the former government are currently in the implementation phase and the formation of a Gen Z council has reached its final stage. The task force will collect input through both oral and written submissions during the consultation process. The annual report of Nepal's Auditor General for the fiscal year 2025-26 has been submitted to President Ramchandra Paudel at his official residence. Auditor General Toyam Brahe formally presented the report during a special ceremony held at the President's office in Kathmandu. On the occasion, President Paudel expressed concern over rising cases of financial irregularities and embezzlement in public institutions. Raya stressed the need for stronger accountability, transparency and financial discipline to ensure good governance and sustainable development. The President also expressed confidence that the report's findings would encourage concerned bodies to take corrective action while urging the Editor General's office to remain more active in safeguarding public funds. Lumini province has dedicated to reduce its ministries to 8 starting from the new fiscal year on July 17 as part of a major administrative restructuring drive. The province currently has 12 ministries, including the Office of the Chief Minister and Council of Ministries, and plans to merge departments with overlapping responsibilities. The move aims to cut unnecessary expenses, improve efficiency and make governance more streamlined and effective. Chief Minister Chet Narayan Acharya said the decision is intended to ensure faster, more transparent and more efficient public service delivery. The restructuring will also include adjustments to directorates and offices under various ministries and will be reflected in the upcoming fiscal year's policies and programs. Nepal's Finance Minister Dr. Swarnim Wagle has presented the government's budget priorities in the National Assembly ahead of the upcoming fiscal year announcement on Jesta 15 as per Nepali calendar. The priorities focus on good governance, economic reform, improved connectivity, human capital, development and strengthening national soft power. The minister also outlined plans to enhance digital public services, curb corruption, control revenue leakage, and create a more investment-friendly environment for the private sector. While the government has emphasized major infrastructure, agriculture, education, health and tourism, economists say such priorities are not new and stress that implementation remains the key challenge. Experts, including former National Planning Commission officials and economic analysts, have expressed doubt over whether that past issues of weak execution will be addressed despite the strong policy direction. The government of Nepal has announced plans to develop parks, walkways, cycle lanes and green corridors on land cleared from encroachments along river banks in the Kathmandu Valley. The ongoing campaigns targets settlements and illegal structures along major rivers including the Bagmati, Vishnumati and Manohara as part of broader efforts for river conservation and flood risk reduction. Officials say the initiative aims to replace unplanned urban settlements with organized green public spaces, improving environmental conditions in the capital. Dr. Anand Singh Bhatt, chairperson of the Bagmati Civilization Integrated Committee, said the reclaimed land will be systematically developed into green corridors under the government plan. Authorities also confirmed that removals have been carried out in several areas following court orders and legal provisions, while further clearance work continues in other riverbank locations across the valley. Time now for a short break. We shall be back with more updates. Welcome back. You're watching Primetime News on NTV World. Now the remaining updates. At least people have been killed in a road accident in Dambrikhola area of Mandavi Rural Municipality in Bhutan District, Western Nepal. The victims were traveling in a Maruti van that lost control while moving along the Devistan Dang road section and plunged about 200 meters off the road before hitting a tree. Police confirmed that both the driver, 24-year-old Dilip Pariyar, and passenger, 26-year-old Abhishek Kaur, died on the spot. A police team reached the incident site shortly after receiving information and has begun preliminary investigation. Authorities say they are working to determine the exact cause of the crash. 6-year-old girl has died after consuming wild mushrooms in Ichha Manakamana Rural Municipality of Chitwan District in Nepal. The victim, identified as Namuna Chepang, a grade 2 student, passed away this morning, while 2 other family members have been seriously ill. Sajan Chepang and Manita Chepang, who also ate the mushrooms last Tuesday, are undergoing treatment at Bharatpur Hospital. The family's condition came to light only after the child's death, as they had remained at home despite falling sick. Doctors say wild mushrooms can contain the toxic compound amatoxin, which can cause severe liver failure and affect vital organs, including the brain and kidneys. Construction entrepreneurs in Nepal's Koshi province have staged a sit-in protest outside the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Planning, demanding either a revision of contract prices or an extension of project deadlines. Following the demonstration, representatives submitted a memorandum to Chief Minister Hikmat Kumar Karki and Provincial Minister Bidur Kumar Lingthang. The entrepreneurs say rising input costs have made ongoing infrastructure projects financially unstable. According to their association, fuel prices have surged by around 50% in the past month, while materials such as cement, iron rods, gravel and sand have also been sharp increases. They argue that price hike, partly linked to global oil market pressure following tensions in the Middle East, could severely impact the construction sector if no relief is provided. Exhibits showcasing Magar art, culture and traditions at the Palpa Darbar Museum in Western Nepal are drawing increasing attention from domestic tourists. The displays include traditional clothing, household items, kitchen setups and materials reflecting marriage customs, costumes and daily life. According to Museum Chief Laxman Ghimire, the Magar section is helping preserve cultural practices that are gradually fading in rural communities. The collection is also serving as important learning source for students, teachers, researchers and visitors. The Magar community has a significant presence across Palpa district in Lumini province, where it is settled in both municipalities and rural municipalities. Nepali cuisine and culture are gaining greater visibility across Europe through innovative individual and institutional efforts. In a new attempt aimed at promoting Nepal's tourism, traditions and hospitality in Portugal, a new cultural initiative, Journey to Nepal, has been launched in Lisbon, capital of Portugal. The campaign features authentic Nepali food, music, dance and cultural performances designed to introduce Portuguese audiences to Nepal's heritage and natural beauty. The campaign also aims to raise funds for disadvantaged and orphaned children in Nepal and Portugal. Portuguese officials, business leaders and media representatives attended the event, reflecting growing interest in Nepali culture within Portugal. Now it's time again for a short breather here. We will see you at the other side with international news. Do stay with us. U.S. President Donald Trump has headed back to Washington, wrapping up high-level talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping focused on trade and bilateral ties. President Trump said the two sides had reached fantastic trade deals during the summit.
这次的访问是一个历史性的、标志性的访问。这个迄今我们已经达成了一个新的两国关系，就是建设性的战略稳定关系。这个可以说是一个里程碑式的一个访问事件，而且我们达成了很多这个合作的成果的文件。
I want to thank you very much. This has been an incredible visit. I think a lot of good has come of it. We've made some fantastic trade deals, great for both countries.
While Trump did not immediately disclose the details of the trade agreements, in Fox interview later, he mentioned that one of the business deals included Xi agreeing to purchase 200 big Boeing jets. The U.S. president also said Beijing had also shown interest in buying U.S. oil and soybeans. China's foreign ministry did not confirm or deny the information. Meanwhile, the United States has rejected Iran's 14-point peace proposal to end the war and has once again reiterated its coercive stance, particularly regarding the nuclear issue. According to Iranian daily newspaper Tehran Times, the first stage reportedly aims to end war on all fronts, and only if Iran's conditions are met, with the second stage commencing if it incorporates discussing the nuclear issue in Iran's proposed two-stage negotiation process. The plan was submitted as a counter-proposal to the US's 9-point proposal earlier this month, and was delivered through Pakistani mediators. While Washington's plan reportedly calls for a 2-month ceasefire, Tehran requested a 30-day timeline to resolve key issues according to reports, insisting that talks focus on ending the war rather than a temporary truce. In other update from the region, Israel and Lebanon concluded the third round of peace talks on Thursday at the U.S. Department, which lasted over 8 hours. The U.S. mediation of the talks was led by U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee, Secretary of State Marco Rubio's advisor Michael Needham. The Israeli delegation included Israel's ambassador to the U.S., Yeshel later, while the Lebanese delegation comprised Lebanon's foreign ambassador to the U.S., Simon Karam, among others. Israel reportedly wants to preserve freedom to carry out air and ground operations against Hezbollah until an agreement is reached, while Lebanon is demanding an Israeli withdrawal from its territory, a halt to Israeli strikes and an end to the destruction of villages near the border. The talks are expected to continue on Friday, though it was unclear whether the sides were close enough to make progress. Russia and Ukraine exchanged 205 prisoners of war each on Friday. The Russian Defense Ministry said in a statement on social media that 205 Russian servicemen were returned from territory controlled by Kyiv, adding that in exchange 205 Ukrainian armed forces prisoners of war were transferred. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said on Telegram most of the Ukrainians handed over had been in Russian captivity since 2022. According to Zelensky, this is the first phase of the 1,000 for 1,000 prisoner exchange. Moscow's defense ministry said its troops were brought to its ally Belarus, where they are receiving the necessary psychological and medical assistance. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrived in the UAE escorted by military planes on Friday as he began a 5-nation tour, including the Netherlands, Sweden, Norway and Italy. Modi was escorted by military aircraft upon entering UAE airspace and was welcomed with a guard of honor by UAE President Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. During bilateral talks, the two leaders discussed energy cooperation, trade relations, and other issues of mutual importance. In his remarks, Modi condemned recent attacks on the UAE as unacceptable and reaffirmed India's support for the Emirates during a period of growing regional instability. He also said dialogue and diplomacy remain the only solution to the current global conflicts and stressed that the India-UAE Comprehensive Strategic Partnership continues to expand across multiple sectors. More from the international front and sports news coming up after this short breather. The deadly outbreak of the Ebola virus has been confirmed in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, African health authorities said Friday. The African Centers for Disease Control and Prevention said 246 suspected cases and 65 deaths have been reported in Ituri province, including 4 deaths among laboratory-confirmed cases. The health agency said the Ebola virus disease outbreak was confirmed in Ituri province. The Africa CDC said it is closely monitoring the situation and has convened an urgent high-level coordination meeting with DRC, Uganda, South Sudan and global partners to reinforce cross-border surveillance, preparedness and outbreak response efforts. First identified in 1976 and third to have crossed over from bats, Ebola is a deadly viral disease spread through direct contact with bodily fluids, causing severe bleeding and organ failure. Palestinians in the Gaza Strip marked the 78th anniversary of Nakba Day on May 15, with marches calling for the right to return to their homeland. Demonstrators dressed in traditional Palestinian clothing carried symbolic keys representing homes lost during the mass displacement that followed the creation of Israel in 1948. About 700,000 Palestinians were displaced during the conflict surrounding Israel's founding, an event Palestinians refer to as the Nakba or catastrophe. Commemorations were held across several locations in Gaza as the territory continues to face widespread disruption from nearly 2 years of war between Israel and Hamas. The United Nations agency says more than 3/4 of homes in Gaza have been damaged during the conflict, displacing large numbers of Palestinians once again. Scientists have identified a massive new dinosaur from remains discovered in Thailand, with the creature estimated to have weighed as much as 9 adult elephants. The long-necked herbivore stressed 27 meters, that is 88 feet, and weighed about 27 tons, according to a study published in the journal Scientific Reports. According to the researchers, it probably roamed the current area of Thailand between 100 and 120 million years ago and is the largest ever found in Southeast Asia. The first remains of the enormous creature were unearthed a decade ago by locals in northeast Thailand, but the excavation was not completed until 2024, according to the study published Thursday. A life-size reconstruction is on display at Bangkok's Dinosaur Museum, according to UCL. Those were international updates. Now we move to sports. Nepal's National Sports Council (NSC) has lifted the suspension imposed on the leadership of the All Nepal Football Association (ANFA), ending a dispute that had disrupted the country's football administration. The decision was reached during a high-level meeting attended by Education and Sports Minister Sasmit Pokhrel, Council's Member Secretary Ramcharitra Mehta, and ANFA officials. According to ANFA spokesperson Suresh Shah, the suspension has been withdrawn unconditionally, restoring normal governance within the football body. The move is expected to revive stalled football activities and improve coordination between the governing bodies. It also raises the possibility of Nepal's women's national team participating in the upcoming SAF Women's Championship, a key regional tournament in South Asia. Tennis player Pradeep Khadka and 800-meter athlete Narayani Bhandari have been named the best male and female players of the year at 10th Rara Pokhara Sports Awards in Nepal's Gandaki province. The awards were organized by the Nepal Sports Journalist Forum, Gandaki, with Khadka and Bhandari emerging ahead of strong contenders from judo, volleyball, archery and cricket. Bhandari, a national record holder and gold medalist, also featured in the People's Choice Award category, which was won by footballer Rajan Darlami, though through public voting via the Khalti app. Badminton player Niva Rai was named Best Emerging Player, while Siddhant Adhikari of Athletics won Best Coach, and the Kaske District Cricket Association was recognized as Best Sports Organization. Winners in major categories received scooters along with trophies, while several other award recipients were also honored with cash prizes and special recognition for their contributions to Nepal sports. And before we wrap up, here's a reminder of our top stories. Nepal government invites Gen Z for dialogue on constitutional amendment, clarifies process on consultations and the final stage. Auditor General's report submitted to President. President Faudel flags concerns over embezzlement and calls for accountability. Nepal government pushes administrative reform for efficiency and cost reduction. Province governments downsizing the number of ministries. Nepal outlines budget priorities ahead of May end presentation. Experts raise questions over implementation. US rejects Iran's 14-point peace proposal. Nuclear issue remains a sticking point as war talks stall. And Nepal Sports Council lifts ANFA suspension. Move restores normal football governance. That's it for this edition of Primetime News. Our next bulletin will be at 2200 hours Nepal time. Do join us through our social media and get the latest updates from our official website, nepaltelevision.com. Thank you for staying with us. Have a wonderful evening ahead.
Good evening and welcome to Business World. I am Siksha Bhattrai, your host for tonight. From escalating geopolitical tensions and rising fuel prices to climate-driven economic challenges and breakthroughs in futuristic technology, this week's global developments are continuing to reshape markets, industries and livelihoods across continents. Tonight we look at how conflicts in the Middle East are affecting energy and aviation sectors worldwide, while countries are turning into emergency financial measures to stabilize their economies, and how climate pressures are beginning to transform insurance and labor systems in Asia. We'll also take you from the blackout-hit streets of Cuba to the fishing communities of Indonesia, and finally into the future of robotics with a remarkable new machine unveiled in China. We begin tonight in Cuba, where an unprecedented energy shortages is pushing the country deeper into the crisis. Cuba says it has completely run out of diesel and fuel oil, triggering widespread blackouts, disruptions to hospitals and schools, and protests in parts of Havana. The crisis has worsened after fuel supplies from Venezuela and Mexico declined amid pressure linked to U.S. sanctions and tariff threats. Authorities say some areas are facing power cuts lasting more than 20 hours a day.
Cuba has completely run out of diesel and fuel oil, the country's energy minister Vicente de la Olavi has said. In an interview with state-run media, de la Olavi said there were limited amounts of gas available, but that Cuba's energy system was in a critical state as a US-led blockade of oil to the country squeezed supply. Scattered protests against power cuts broke out in the capital Havana on Wednesday. The U.S. this week reiterated its offer of sending $100 million to the country in exchange of meaningful reforms to Cuba's communist system. Under the U.S. blockade, parts of Havana have been plunged into 20 to 22-hour blackout periods. Hospitals have been unable to function normally, while schools and government offices have been forced to close. Tourism and economic engine for Cuba has also been impacted. Cuba normally relies on Venezuela and Mexico to supply oil to its refinery system. However, the two countries have largely cut off supplies since U.S. President Donald Trump threatened tariffs on countries that send fuel to Cuba.
From Cuba's worsening fuel shortage, we move to the growing financial burden of conflict in the Middle East and its wider economic consequences. The Pentagon says the cost of the war with Iran has climbed to nearly $29 billion. The updated estimate has intensified debate in Washington over military spending and operational readiness as tensions continue to affect oil markets and global shipping routes.
The Pentagon says the cost of the war with Iran has risen to nearly $29 billion as scrutiny increases over its impact on U.S. military readiness. The updated figure was presented during a Defense Department budget hearing in Congress and is about $4 billion higher than an estimate given 2 weeks earlier. U.S. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth said during the hearing that the department is proposing a $1.5 trillion budget and maintained that current munitions levels are sufficient for operational needs.
We're submitting a $1.5 trillion budget that will remake the department and ensure that every warfighter in the future has exactly what they need, and we're never in a fair fight. And I take issue with the characterization that munitions are depleted in a public forum. That's not true. And ultimately, we have all the munitions needed to execute what we need to execute, and we're going to ensure that we supercharge that going into the future.
And though geopolitical tensions are already creating turbulence across the aviation industry as well, global airlines are facing soaring fuel costs after disruptions around the Strait of Hormuz pushed energy prices sharply higher. Major airlines in the United States and Europe have raised fares and operational charges as fuel expense continue to surge. Industry experts warn prolonged instability in the region could further impact global travel and trade.
Global airlines are facing soaring fuel costs after military strikes by the United States and Israel on Iran disrupt shipping through the Strait of Hormuz, sending global energy prices sharply higher. Major U.S. passenger airlines spent more than $5 billion on jet fuel in March, a 56% jump from February and up 30.4% year-on-year, according to data released by the U.S. Department of Transportation. To alleviate pressure from soaring fuel costs, major U.S. airlines have raised airfares and baggage fees and introduced other cost-cutting measures. Fuel expenses now account for as much as 25% to 40% of the operating cost on some routes. The U.S. low-cost carrier Spirit Airlines, which ceased operations last Saturday, said the fuel price surge added $100 million in extra fuel cost in March and April. Several European airlines have also seen their operating costs surge due to rising energy prices. Lufthansa Group said on Wednesday that it expects its 2026 fuel cost to increase by €1.7 billion as Middle East tensions are driving up prices and the escalations in the Strait of Hormuz deepening market fears over supply shortages.
Meanwhile, in South Asia, Pakistan is seeking new financial options to stabilize its economy amid growing regional uncertainty. The country says it plans to access Chinese capital markets through its first yuan-denominated panda bond. Officials say the move is aimed at strengthening foreign reserves and reducing pressure on the economy as energy cost and regional instability continue to weigh heavily on the country.
Pakistan is expected to access Chinese capital markets for the first time through a yuan-dominated bond next week, according to Finance Minister Mohammad Aurangzeb. The $250 million issue, the first of a planned $1 billion program, will be backed by the Asian Development Bank and the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. Aurangzeb said Pakistan's economy was showing signs of recovery, including rising exports and remittances, despite the war in Iran and closure of Strait of Hormuz, placing massive strain on the country, which relies heavily on imported fuel and gas. The finance minister's comments follow the release of about $1.32 billion in fresh funding by the International Monetary Fund from 2 loan disbursements under 2 ongoing programs. Aurangzeb said last month the government was weighing Eurobonds from other countries and commercial debt to replace a $3.5 billion facility from the United Arab Emirates and manage its foreign reserves.
And that development comes shortly after Islamabad secured another major funding package from the International Monetary Fund. The IMF has approved more than $1.2 billion in fresh funding for Pakistan under 2 support programs.
The International Monetary Fund Executive Board reached a staff-level agreement on Pakistan's loan program, unlocking $1.22 billion in fresh funding. The decision allows for an immediate disbursement of around $1.1 billion under the Extended Fund Facility and around $220 million under the Resilience and Sustainability Facility, according to the IMF. The approval comes as Pakistan continues efforts to stabilize its economy after facing high inflation, weakening foreign exchange reserves, and mounting debt pressures over the past 2 years. The South Asian nation has relied heavily on IMF support to avoid a balance of payments crisis and restore investor confidence. The IMF added that continued reform efforts would be critical to ensuring macroeconomic stability and sustainable growth.
From South Asia, we now turn to rising trade tensions between the United States and Europe. US President Donald Trump has threatened significantly higher tariffs on the European Union if trade levies are not reduced by July 4. The remarks have revived concern about a broader trade dispute between 2 of the world's largest economies and the possible impact on global markets. In Japan, concerns over long-term fiscal stability are also growing.
US President Donald Trump has threatened much higher tariffs on the European Union by 4th of July if the bloc fails to drop its levies on the US to 0. Trump said that after a phone call with European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, he had agreed to give her until the United States' 250th birthday, adding that otherwise tariffs would immediately be raised to much higher levels. However, von der Leyen said the bloc was making good progress toward tariff reduction ahead of Trump's deadline. Hours after the threat, a U.S. trade court ruled Trump's latest 10% global tariffs were not justified under U.S. trade law, which could allow future court challenges. A trade deal was struck by von der Leyen and Trump in July last year, but progress on enacting it stumbled on Wednesday after talks between EU lawmakers and governments ended without an agreement.
Across Europe, defense spending is also accelerating amid regional security concerns. Poland has become the first country to secure financing under the European Union's Safe Defense Programme. The nearly €44 billion package will support military modernization and boost domestic defense manufacturing as Europe increases security preparedness.
Poland has become the first country to sign a loan agreement under the European Union's Security Action for Europe or SAFE program, securing nearly €43.7 billion or $52 billion to modernize its military and defense industry. The SAFE scheme provides up to €150 billion in preferential loans for joint defense projects, weapons procurement, and critical infrastructure development as European nations increase spending in response to security threats from Russia and the risk of U.S. disengagement. Officials said around 89% of the contracts financed through the loan are expected to go to Polish companies, providing a major boost to the country's domestic defense manufacturing sector and the local industries.
Meanwhile, in Latin America, economic instability is reigniting debate over national currency reforms. Debate is intensifying in Venezuela over formally adopting the US dollar as the country continues to struggle with inflation and economic uncertainty.
Formal dollarization is once again emerging as a major topic in Venezuela's economic debate, fueled by persistent inflation and uncertainty surrounding the future of President Nicolas Maduro. The idea of officially replacing the bolivar with the US dollar has gained support among some opposition figures and business leaders who argue that adopting the American currency could stabilize prices and restore confidence in the economy. Venezuela has already experienced years of de facto dollarization, with dollars widely used in daily transactions after hyperinflation eroded the value of the national currency. The move is said to help curb inflation and limit the government's ability to print money. However, it also pointed out it will strip Venezuela of control over monetary policy and leave the country dependent on decisions made by the US Federal Reserve.
Turning now to climate-related economic challenges and the growing impact on livelihoods across Asia, India has introduced a climate risk insurance program designed to protect informal workers during extreme heat waves. The system automatically provides payouts when temperatures reach dangerous levels, allowing outdoor workers to suspend activities without losing income.
An innovative climate risk insurance scheme is helping informal workers in India protect their incomes as extreme heat increasingly disrupts economic activity across the country. Under the new insurance program, payouts are automatically made when temperatures hit a threshold, allowing workers to suspend outdoor activities without jeopardizing their finances. The scheme reflects a growing business response to climate-related economic risks, particularly in sectors dependent on informal labor and outdoor work. The initiative comes as rising temperatures and prolonged heat waves create mounting challenges for businesses, insurers and policymakers in India. Extreme heat has increasingly affected productivity, supply chains and workforce availability, prompting financial institutions and insurance providers to develop climate adaptation products aimed at vulnerable workers and small businesses. The scheme is seen as an emerging growth area for insurers seeking to expand coverage in climate-sensitive markets across Asia.
And in neighboring Indonesia, rising energy prices are threatening traditional fishing communities. Hundreds of fishermen in Indonesia have stopped going out to sea as soaring fuel prices make operations increasingly unaffordable.
Hundreds of fishermen in an Indonesian coastal town on the island of Java have been forced to stop going out to sea and are at risk of losing their livelihoods due to soaring fuel prices. The price of subsidized fuel has remained unchanged, but the cost of non-subsidized fuel, including industrial diesel, surged as high as 30,000 rupiah, about $1.73 per liter since last month, a steep increase from 14,000 to 23,000 rupiah before the hike. State-owned gas and oil company Pertamina said last month the price increase was necessary due to geopolitical conditions, referring to the Middle East war that has driven up the global oil prices. Local officials are reportedly assessing the impact of the price surge on fishing communities amid calls from fishermen's groups for additional subsidies or government assistance to prevent further economic hardship.
And in Turkey, unusual weather conditions are disrupting one of the country's most valuable agricultural products. Heavy snowfall in Turkey's Rize province has delayed the harvest of the world-famous Anzur honey. Producers say the disruption could affect both the timing and quantity of this year's production, raising concerns for local beekeepers and exporters.
Unexpected heavy snowfall in May has disrupted the traditional beekeeping cycle in Turkey's Rize province, leading to a projected delay in the harvest of the world-renowned Anzur honey. Typically, beekeepers transport their hives to the high-altitude Anzur Plateau during the first week of May. However, harsh winter conditions persisting into spring have forced a change in plans. The delay is likely to affect the timing and volume of this year's harvest. The disruption could have financial implications for local beekeepers and suppliers, as Anza honey, one of Turkey's most premium and sought-after honey varieties, commands high market prices domestically and internationally due to its limited production and unique floral composition.
Finally, tonight we take a look at futuristic innovation highlighting China's growing ambitions in advanced robotics. Chinese robotics company Unitree has unveiled a transformable robot suit capable of carrying a human operator while shifting into a four-legged walking machine.
Chinese robotics company Unitree unveiled a new piloted robot suit known as the GD01. The transformable machine includes a cockpit designed for a human operator and can shift into a four-legged walking form. The unveiling highlights growing advances in robotics and human-machine mobility technology in China's tech sector. Images released by the company showed the robot moving on multiple limbs while carrying a pilot inside the central control compartment. Unitree is known internationally for developing humanoid and quadruped robots used in research, industrial, and demonstration projects.
And that's all for this edition of Business World. We will continue bringing you the latest international business, market and economic developments every week right here on Business World. I am Siksha Bhattrai. Thank you for watching.
Welcome to Insight. For decades, we have treated the economy and the environment as opposing forces. The idea that to grow financially, we must sacrifice ecologically. But environmental economics flips this narrative. It proves that our natural resources, our forests, rivers, and clean air are the very foundation of our economic survival. When development comes at the cost of the environment, the bill inevitably comes due. To help us understand how we can price the priceless and design policies for a sustainable future, today we are joined by Dr. Mani Nepal, an internationally recognized professional and lead economist at International Center for Integrated Mountain Development. He heads the Sandy Research Network across South Asia. Dr. Nepal, welcome to Insight.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
It's good to have you here.
Thank you.
What's keeping you busy these days when we talk about the research aspects of your career?
Well, so I'm actually leading, as you mentioned, a research network called Sandy, which works in 10 countries in the region. We have been working with the institution since 1999. But I didn't join that time, but I joined Sandy in 2008. So our goal is to help researchers from the region to enhance research capacity through financial support, technical support, mentorship. And that whole program, I have been coordinating that program for some time. So that keeps me quite busy. And other than that, I also do additional research where I get interested. Where, for example, these days I'm working in a project which looks at the economics of forest restoration in South Asia. That project is implemented in 4 countries, Bangladesh, Nepal, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka, where government have been spending a lot of money for conserving forests for a long time. And that's good for mitigating climate. But what is there for the common people who are living around the forest? Is there a benefit to the people who are helping conserve those forests? Mm-hmm. So that's the research that I've been currently focusing on. There are many, but that's one of the examples.
Mm-hmm. Let's start with the foundational idea. When we talk about economics and environment, we often treat it as 2 different themes, but they are fated to go along.
Yeah, so basically there has been, very recently there was a global review on economics of biodiversity. And Professor Partha Dasgupta, who was the leader of that review, the review is also called Dasgupta Review, he came up with the phrase, it's called humanity is embedded in nature. That means development and environment, they are interlinked. You cannot separate them out. So it's a matter of choice, it's a matter of incentive, and it's a matter of like a way, like in priorities, where you want to develop, where you want to conserve. But it's not the either situations. You can do a development, but development can be like, environmental friendly. So there are a lot of examples where you can still make it like, cleaner, greener development. But, sometimes we don't understand these interlinkages and interpret it as like there is always trade-off between development and environment, which is not the case all the time.
Mm-hmm. In your observations so far, have you seen any example as such where development has come at a heavy cost for the community?
Well, so for example, like, whenever I have time, I often go out for trekking. Right? Nepal is famous for its mountain peaks, and people come from around the world for trekking, and Nepalese are also now, going for trekking. When you go to the trekking routes, some of those traditional trekking routes are now destroyed because of this, the roads that are built in the villages. It's not that roads should not be built in the villages, right? That's actually the rights of the villagers to have the transportation facilities. But it can be planned in such a way that you can preserve the traditional routes, like hiking routes, trekking routes, and you can also build roads without affecting, considering each other as a complementary, not as a substitute. So that's why we are not actually putting a lot of thinking in how to actually do that, strike a balance between environment and the development.
Mm-hmm. How tricky do you think the balance is? What would you suggest policymakers do, or what are they not doing right?
So basically, when you do implement any kind of program for development, there should be enough information. And actually, we need in other countries they call it research. So you need a lot of research, evidence. If you do a project A, what are the environmental consequences? What happens to the taking route A versus taking route B when you construct a road there? Are there enough protections or the safeguards for those routes? So if you can plan that way, it can be managed very well. But those things, if you look at in our rural areas, roads are good, right? So ultimately, it gives access to markets and mobility, and you can bring your products from rural areas to the cities, which is good. But the way it is done is not that I would say consistent. It should be done differently.
You wonderfully mentioned about research and data, but before going into that, how effective do you think are tools in Nepal, such as the EIA?
Well, there are so there is some policies and rules that whenever you want to implement any development programs, you need to do the EIA, the environmental impact assessment, and sometimes those evaluations are controversial, and the controversy comes when there is those things are not done properly, which basically boils down to the capacity, human capacity, the human capital, whether we have the right human capital to conduct those kind of assessments. Do we have the right information? So those are the critical things. You need to have three things, right? You need to have the right environment, meaning the environment not in the sense of overall environment, but the research environment. And you should have the research capacity and also the resources to do that, plus the relevant data. So if you can put all those together, those things can be done very well, and then those controversies can be actually reduced. But we don't have much of those things in our country, unfortunately.
And why do you think the constraint is as such?
Well, for research, so it's let's look back to our education system, because it depends on the country's education system. When I was a student, I did my master's from Tribhuvan University and my bachelor's at Tribhuvan University, and I was the top in the class, in countrywide. So I was gold medalist for bachelor's and master's, right? But what I learned is just the theory part. There was no research at all in your master's and bachelor's degree. Even the professors who taught us, if you look at the the website where everybody can see what the professors are doing, right, in terms of research. If you look at the professor who taught us that time, and by that time, the research was not the thing of the day. Nobody thought about doing research. So when you don't have that incentive, meaning there was no incentive for doing research, and incentive plus resources. You should have the incentive as well as resources. Incentive only doesn't matter. You should have the resources also, and the capacity, right? Those three things are very fundamental. You have to have the capacity, the resources, and the incentive. If you can combine those three things, the research can be done.
Surely these gaps were, it's not new that it was identified, right? It's been years that we have had these bottlenecks. Yeah. Why do you think we have not been able to mend the gap?
So basically, for doing research in many countries, they actually have the funding agency. Sometimes they call it, in some countries they call it National Science Foundation. So what they do is government actually gives the funding for that National Science Foundation to administer research. And people can actually apply in competitive basis. Whoever gets selected, they do research. So that's why there is enough supply of research in the country, and you can use whenever you need it. But in our case, there is not that agency who actually administers research based on local funding, like government funding. Very recently, there are some fund available at the UGC, which gives funding to the people, faculty working in the universities. But research can be done outside universities also. And the people who are outside university, they don't have actual resources to do research, funding for resources. So, for example, in our case, we generate funding by applying in the global, in a competition. But we don't have the domestic resources. And the research sometimes, what we do, may not exactly meet the need of the domestic need, because the research was done based on the global call. The global issues may be different from the local issue. So if you want to address local issues, there should be enough funding, research funding, to actually do research on different things that fund can actually support.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't have that.
Do you think we will ever have that?
Oh, that's a very good question, and I don't know. So I've been actually, whenever I get forum in advising, giving suggestion to the government, especially during this budget time, I actually put that proposal a few times. And sometimes you can see there will be some funding for research or the innovation, those kind of things. But the problem is implementation. So when it comes to implementation, we are very, very, very poor in terms of implementation. Even if you have the policy and program, when it comes to implementation, we're always behind. So that's the the main challenge, the main bottleneck that we are facing, actually.
And what would you say are the reasons that we are not being able to implement the wonderful policies and programs that we bring forth?
Well, sometimes policies and programs are designed in, using different informations and ideas, and sometimes those policies and programs may be away from the reality. Whether you can implement that policy is one thing, and whether that policy will be effective to address whatever issue that you want to address. To understand that, we need again the evidence, and the evidence comes from the research. So, being a researcher, I have been in the research area for a long time, so I cannot emphasize more how important it is for having a good research foundations and funding and the environment in the country if you want to make progress. Mm-hmm. Even making any good policies, you need to test whether that policy is implementable and whether it is effective to address, like a piloting of anything, right? So before implementing nationwide, based on your gut feeling, it's always a good idea to implement in a certain area, certain districts or certain province, and see how it goes. And if that goes well, you do research and find out if it is effective. And if it is effective, then there is no problem of implementing nationwide. If you implement nationwide with understanding, and you need to scrap, and it's very costly, the costly thing that we lost a lot of the public money, the taxpayers' money, without understanding what works well and what does not work well. So again, research is the main thing that I would say.
It all boils down to evidence, data.
Yes.
Nepal has been the least polluter, but at the same time pays heavy bill due to climate change. What would you say are Nepal's environmental challenges compared to, how is it different in fact compared to the bigger polluters?
So, globally, there are varieties of environmental challenges, including climate change. People basically call it triple planetary crisis. One is climate change, biodiversity loss, and the third one is pollution. Right? These are the main, there are more, but those are the three globally recognized problems. So when it comes to Nepal, Nepal has its geography, very unique geography. So the climate change, meaning the increasing average mean temperature over a long time period. So when the temperature increases in lower land, in upper land, higher elevation, we would call it elevation-dependent temperature rising, right? So, or elevation-dependent warming. So higher elevation gets more higher increase relatively, higher temperature. So that means the warming is becoming more faster in the higher elevation, meaning our asset is what? Our mountains, our ice, our snow, those are our assets. That brings tourists for scenic vista, that generates the hydropower from the rivers. So these are our the important assets. But because of this global warming, we are actually facing the more cost compared to. And then when there are extreme events because of climate change, for example, high intensity, short duration intense rainfall, it brings down the landslides, and in the lower area you got flooding, and other time it's a prolonged a drought where you don't have water and like it's heat and you can experience heat wave, and like same thing can happen like in a one after another. These events can happen one after another in the same area. So it's a very unique place that Nepal holds, and our challenges are very different challenges compared to countries which are only flat, or countries who are like in other tropic areas, those kind of things.
In one of the examples that you gave about environmental challenges facing Nepal, pollution is also one. Our cities are suffocating due to pollution, and also solid waste management, which is fragmented. Is the government's unified green tax policy and the right economic lever to solve our urban degradation?
Well, so in principle, the tax is like incentive for behaving well. So in economics, we call it polluters pay principle. If you're polluting, you need to pay the price, right? But the green tax, for example, in fuel tax, so we have environmental tax in the petrol or diesel, whatever we consume. But that money, whatever collected, is not used for actually addressing those issues, right? And sometimes the fuel that people use may be very essential thing. It's not like driving and having a car or motorbike is not a luxury anymore. It's essential for urban living. It's a part of your life, daily life. So I'm not sure whether like just increasing price will solve that issue, but pollution is not just local issue. It's a transboundary issue. There are other sources of pollution. Vehicular movement is one, where you use the fossil fuel for driving. There are other sources like forest fire, burning agricultural residues, waste burning, and other things, right? So these things, basically, if you burn things in somewhere, in some district or in even neighboring country, it comes to us. It has a transboundary nature. It doesn't need any visa to come to Nepal if there's pollution in India. It wouldn't bring it here. So it's a transboundary. It needs a coordinated effort to address it. So it's not like Nepal only can address these these transboundary issues. But there are local pollution also which we can actually address. And if implemented well, the tax policy actually works. But if it is like blanket policy, sometimes it may not work. So it all depends, actually. That's the right answer. In economics, we always say, if you have questions to me, I always say it depends how you actually implement. If it is implemented well, it works. Otherwise, just having policy, many times it doesn't work.
It's not adequate enough.
Yes, not implemented well, for example. So I'll give you an example. So we have, time and again, banned these single-use plastic bags. Many times. If you look at our budget bhasan and other things, you'll see we'll ban like single-use plastics below 40 micron, what they call it, micron, many times. But if you go outside and go to grocery, what do you see? If you buy anything, you're given a plastic bag, right? And if you buy a little bit more, what they say, oh, ma'am, this is a little bit heavy, can I give another one? You get one free, extra. And you also gladly, or we gladly take it. Why is that? For example, let's say the plastic bag is priced 5 rupees for 5 kg and 10 rupees for 10 kg. And you are buying like a 10 kg in a worth. And if you want to, the person gives, do you need another bag? What do you think? You might say, oh, 10 rupees is a significant amount. Okay, I can carry and I can put in my car, I can put my bike, or I have another bag. So people actually change their behavior when there is incentive, right incentive. So we need the right incentive, right? Incentive works, but it should be the right incentive. So if you charge like a price to plastic bags, from tomorrow people stop, or at least reduce their use, and they start bringing their cloth bags or other replacement. But the condition that there should be enough substitutes. Same thing happens with the plastic cups and plates and these, spoons, those we use for parties and those things. And now there are substitutes coming. And if you can put a little bit more like a tax or the price for plastics and give subsidy to those decomposable items, like the plates from the leaves or the coconut leaves, and then other like a shal leaves you can find in the market. Those are decomposable. right? You use it and then you can throw it, it decomposes, converts into like a compost or anything. The plastic is a problem. Why is it a problem? Because when you throw it, it goes to the environment. Number one, it clogs the drain. And during summer, we get the waterlogging in our cities. That's one of the main reasons why you get waterlogging. And when it goes to the soil, what happens? It breaks into smaller particles. It does not decompose, but breaks down. And that is called microplastics. And microplastic is now global. Even if this water now we are planning to drink here, it has microplastic if you test it. Because there is nowhere in the world you don't have microplastics. When you breathe air, it has microplastic. When you drink food, drink water, microplastic. Eat food, microplastic. It's a pandemic. So these are like, the challenge. And how to address this plastic pollution is one of the challenging issues that we are also facing. Because it's everywhere. Mm-hmm. Even newborn people, like babies in people's home, they also have microplastics.
Mm-hmm. You wonderfully touched upon the behavioral aspect that people can change perhaps to make a difference. What would you say would be some practical changes that the government can bring into policy right away that people can do?
Let's say you already talk about the waste, right? Let's come back to the waste management in our cities. So when you go outside, either we throw it in the open space or collect and dump in the dumping site. We don't have sanitary landfill sites. We always say what? Dumping site, right? We don't say landfill site. We don't have it. Even if we have it, we are not managing well, if there is any. So the problem is we don't have enough incentive for people to actually manage the waste properly. The management actually comes from the source. At source, if you can segregate waste very well, and you can take out the material that you can recycle or reuse, like some plastics are recyclable. Items like the papers and other things that you can always reuse or recycle, and organic material you can compost for fertilizer, and whatever is not used for anything, that will be very, very little, like 15-20% of the total waste is that kind, and you can take it to the landfill site. So what happens, instead of putting 100% there, if you just put like a 20% there, the length of the what do you call it, longevity of the landfill site increases by 5-fold. Instead of 20 years, it lasts for 100 years, right? So that's the resource saving. Also, but you need to design incentive. You cannot just request people, oh, please segregate, right? That doesn't work.
Exactly.
So you need to design incentive. I'll give you an example. For example, let's say in my area, so they charge 500 rupees per month for collecting waste. And I basically segregate all the organic waste and we compost it for using in our the kitchen garden. And we have very little thing to give. And my neighbor, they give everything there. And both are charged 500, right? If you want to bring incentive there, so what would be possible way is the charge for people who are segregating and using the organic to composting in their own, the fee should be very less, like 100 versus 500. If you design that way, what my neighbor will do, oh, my neighbor is just paying 100 rupees, why I'm paying 500? Okay, let me do the segregation and composting. It actually helps to motivate the behavior, change the behavior of the people. But incentive should be the right incentive. See, polluters pay, like 500 is polluter pay, you are polluting 500, but that's not the right instrument. You need to have the, what do you call it, depending on what you're doing, you need to change the behavior, right? If you want to change, give the right incentive. So reduce the cost to the people who are actually segregating and then composting, and increase the cost to the people who are not doing it, so that people think very hard whether what to put outside. So that way you can solve, that very simple waste problem.
Wonderfully put. You've been working with Sandy for quite some time now. How is the program engaging with stakeholders to address environmental challenges?
Yeah, Sandy is it's a research capacity network. It works in 10 countries. It originally started in 1999, working 7 countries, but after some time we increased the area and working in 10 countries. It has few objectives. One is helping researchers to enhance their research capacity. because I mentioned there are three things, right? You have to have the capacity, you have to have the resources, and you have to have the environment. So we wanted to create that environment. So in 1999, if you look at it, earlier I mentioned when I was a student, there was no research in the universities. I did my master thesis after compulsion, but that was like, I could have written like one paper and then no thesis also, right? There was an option. And there was no research environment. And Sandy actually addresses those issues. So we provide financial support to researchers to do research. We have the large network of mentors come from globally. And the mentors actually help them to increase their research capacity. We provide technical support with funding and also mentorship program. We have the mentorship program where we organize research workshops every 6 months. And both researchers and their mentors come together, sit together for a week, and identify challenges and how to actually move on. And they meet again after 6 months because they develop the plan and they implement when they go back and come back and share it. And that happens over 2 years. And then after 2 years, they finish their research. They ultimately able to publish in peer-reviewed journals, which becomes very, what do you call it, homegrown literature for informing your local policies. Right. Earlier, when I was a student, whenever I wanted to see any example of research, I wanted to look at like people who are doing research in Europe or America. Now you don't have to say it. There are ample studies done by people trained by Sandy, and you can find a lot of good research who are comparable at the global level. It's not like some research. It's a research that is comparable, but we are doing at a fraction of the cost. The same research we want to do sitting in the global north, it will be like, we can do in like 20% of the cost. That's how much I can say.
Mm-hmm. And what are your current areas of research that could be of value to the government policymakers?
So there are earlier I mentioned about the research on the waste management. That's what we did. And what we found is, the waterlogging issue we always face during summer. And if you do like engineering solution, which cost money, you expand your drainage and you drain the water, which is one option. But if you don't change the human behavior and the waste management remains as is, after a few years, the problem comes back. So the investment that government makes will have no returns after a few years. So changing human behavior is essential, right? And what was if you make city cleaner, what are the benefits to the people? Are there any other benefits other than the reduce waterlogging? So we did a research in 48 municipalities. Those are the earlier old municipalities. If you remember, like earlier we had 58 municipalities. So we did that research to understand what is the value of cleaner environment. Can you buy and sell clean environment in the market? The answer is no. There's no market for buying or selling clean environment, right? But environmental economics actually provides a tool and methods to actually value those non-marketable goods and services. So that's the beauty of this discipline. Okay, so it can put the value on things that are not bought and sold in the market. Okay, so what we did is we look at the communities where they are doing their waste management, and we found some communities are very clean, and some are not so clean, and some are in between. So we wanted to find out what's the value of the cleaner environment, but it is not available in the market, how to do it. So the idea is, so let's say you create a community here and the community there, same kind of housing, same street, same road, same distance to bank is same, distance to school is same, everything is same, two communities, but one community manages waste better or well, other is dirty community, one is cleaner. And you find the housing price in this community and that community, and let's say houses are also same, 100% same, no difference at all, right? The only difference between those two communities is one is managing waste very well, it is clean, other one is not doing, it is not clean. So if you find any difference in the housing price, that difference in the housing price is the value of the cleaner environment. It is basically creating a market. We call it a surrogate market. You know what is surrogacy, right? So there is no real market, but we create the surrogate market and look at what happens there. And you can assign the value or estimate the value of those non-marketed goods and services. So what we did is, once we did that, we found in the cleaner neighborhood, the housing price was more than 25% higher compared to the area where you have not so good environment. So what's the benefit to the government now? Is just with the same property tax rate, you can get more tax revenue as if you are government, because the housing prices, the value of the house is higher in the cleaner neighborhood. You don't raise tax rate, but you get more revenue, and you use that revenue to clean the cities. So there is ecosystem, right? So it fits back, but you need to really have a right design. So if you have the right design of the policy and implement very well, it actually generates the revenue for you. The problem is not resources. That's what I've been telling for a long time. The problem, we have a lot of problem, right? Environment problem, development problem, all these issues. This is not because lack of resources. This is because of the management problem. We don't know how to manage things, how to manage resources properly. If we can manage properly, you can actually generate resources within the system. So that's what we have shown that research, which is, I think, very useful for all the local governments.
Mm-hmm. I'm hearing your experience of doing masters where research was not required back then till today, since you're also an academician. How hopeful are you about the research in academic institutions, universities?
Well, I can speak on economics, not other disciplines. So in economics, so slowly, because maybe it's a part of the Sandy actually trained a lot of people. We actually train junior to mid-career university faculty for doing research. Actually, we train them, right? And in different universities, we have our alumni, not only in Nepal, but in whole South Asia. So they bring that research culture to their classrooms. And the alumni that we train, actually, they started doing research. And they actually advise students, and they encourage students to, and they do joint research, right? So the research culture has been actually improving. What we don't have is the resources. That's where, again, I will come back, that we need a research funding from the government. So something like a National Science Foundation, which actually supports this kind of research for funding. Not just fulfilling the academic requirement of the students who are doing PhD and masters, but that research could be useful to the government. If you want to do that, you need to have the very rigorous methods. You need very well-trained professors. You need to hire professors who are very well-trained, who can actually guide the young students for doing good research. And there should be enough funding. And if you can do that, you can generate homegrown literature that actually addresses the challenges that we're facing at different levels.
Our government leaders, political parties, often dream about attaining double-digit economic growth. How can we do it without having catastrophic impact on the environment?
Well, as I said, there are some trade-offs. It's not all the time, but there are countries who they have done the protecting environment and then also having the economic growth simultaneously. I think Bhutan is doing a very wonderful job. They are protecting environment like nobody else. They have a negative carbon emission. That's what I heard from the Bhutanese colleagues, right? Mm-hmm. But and the per capita income, if you look at it, is much higher than what we have. I mean, it is possible. It can be done, but it needs right policy, right instrument for preserving environment, and also the technology that is coming up. We need those kind of technologies. For example, moving away from the fossil fuel to the green energy. It can be not just hydro, but also solar, wind, those kind of energy you can move. The main source of a pollution globally is the energy, right? So if Nepal actually hydro is 100% clean, electricity is a clean energy. But sometimes we import from India, which is not so clean, right? It's mixed. They have hydro, they have solar, they have wind, but also they use coal and other things. So it's we cannot claim we're 100% clean energy users. We import LPG for cooking, and which is not so clean energy. So in terms of energy security, so what I think is we have a lot of resources forest resources, and if you look at the 2021 census, where households, about 51% are still using biomass for cooking, which is firewood. So the challenge is, should we promote LPG and replace firewood? Is that the right policy? To me, that will be disastrous in terms of energy security of the country. So we should not be like hesitating to use firewood, but how you use it, a different question. Where you use it. You need to have the improved stoves. When you burn like a firewood, the smoke should not be accumulated within the kitchen, so that if that happens, you will have the health problem, you have the many other issues. But if that smoke can be controlled in some way, like a gasification is another level of so we don't have that. But at least we can provide cooking stoves with the chimneys where the smoke can go outside and you can use it. And firewood, if you can use sustainably, harvest sustainably, it's a renewable. Every year you can get the branches of the trees. So you can justify that, the firewood that you're using is renewable energy in that sense. If you cut the tree, that's a different thing. But if you cut the branches and again next branch, year you can get the same branch there. So it's renewable energy, right? The question how you use it. To reduce the emission, you need to dry it properly. If you dry properly, if you burn properly in the right stove, the emission will be lower. The impact, at least to the local people, the environmental pollution will be less. Of course, there will be some emission, but that's the thing we need to live with.
Dr. Nepal, thank you so much for your time and your valuable insights.
Yeah, very, very delighted to be here, and thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, the future of our economy is not separate from the health of the environment. From the energy that powers our homes to the water that sustains our fields, every policy choice we make today carries a price for tomorrow. The goal is no longer just to grow, but to grow with the wisdom that our natural capital is our greatest asset. Thank you as always for watching Insight. Until next time.
In the natural splendor, the silver-like peaks or the Himalayas glisten. Cradling a pond filled with milk in its lap, the Numbur Himal gleams. The Dudkunda, meaning a milk pond in Nepal's northeastern district of Solukhumbu, is truly the gateway to the paradise. The Numbur, Khatang and Karyalung mountains seem to smile at all times. Adorned with a garland of colorful flowers, the Dudkunda is overflowing as if filled with milk. The very sight defines nature at its best. Feels as if the Numbur mountain is giving motherly affection, holding the lake in its lap. The beauty is so serene and virgin that one fears not to stain it by touching. Indeed, Dudkunda is nature at its purest form. Located at Solu Dudkunda municipality, Taksindu, the natural paradise draws many visitors. No matter how many words are spent describing it, they all feel inadequate upon reaching there. The name itself is fulfilling and equally sacred.
हजारौं नरनारीहरू चाहिँ तीर्थयात्रीहरू दुधकुण्डमा जानुभएको छ। म पनि पुगिरहेँ। दुधकुण्ड असाध्यै पवित्र स्थल, यो हिमाल काखमा रहेको तीर्थस्थल हो, पुण्यस्थल हो, देवस्थल हो र त्यहाँ चाहिँ एकचोटि पुग्नै पर्दो रहेछ त्यहाँ पुगेर जुन आनन्दको अनुभूति हुन्छ त्यो चाहिँ कहीँ पनि पाइँदैन भन्ने चाहिँ महसुस भयो
आनन्द लाग्यो भएन मस्त नआयो अनि यो ठाउँमा चाहिँ आएर तपस्या गरेर बस्नु जस्तो जस्तो लाग्यो मलाई
एकदमै राम्रो लाग्यो हैन प्रकृतिले दिएको रमणीय तीर्थस्थल हैन जो कोही पनि एकचोटि चाहिँ यहाँ आएर एकचोटि भ्रमण गरेर दर्शन गर्नुपर्छ जस्तो लाग्यो
Situated at an altitude of 4,531 meters above the sea level, Dudkunda is a sacred pilgrimage site of culture and nature. It feels like nature has blessed this place, and culturally, it has bound all castes and ethnicities in a thread of unity. There are various legends and sayings about Dudkunda. One argument is that the pond was formed during the creation of the Himalayas and was discovered by local sheep and yak herders. According to another legend, in ancient times, a yak would go to a stone where the pond is located and offer its milk every day. Later, the place was found to be a pond filled with milk, leading to its name, Dudkunda. This has also led to the belief that gods and goddesses reside here. There are 3 different routes to reach Dudkunda. One route is through Salleri, Faplu, Taksindu and Sasrabeni. Another route goes via Lukla, the gateway to the Everest, through Nuntala, Taksindu and Sahasrabeni. Nature has truly blessed the Solu Dudkunda municipality. Truly, just like the majestic Mount Everest, Dudkunda has the potential to be the destination for everyone in the days to come. It is a thread of unity among all castes and ethnicities. Just like the holy water of Dudkunda, it will become a pure and excellent destination.
हिरण्यबाहवे हिरण्यवर्णाय हिरण्यरूपाय हिरण्यपतये अम्बिकापतये उमापतये पशुपतये नमो नमः।
People simply observe and take pride in artists and their promotion of Malaysian culture internationally. Nobody cares how they struggle just to survive and maintain their sanity, the waves of stress that are constantly present, and how it impedes their creative minds. The life of an artist is like an uneven curve. It never moves smoothly through a straight line. As an artist herself, Shima tries to make her life easy and its journey smooth sailing in a straight line. But this does not happen. After graduating with a bachelor's degree in art and design with a major in pottery and ceramics in 1982, Shima started her own business. She did not only do batik paintings on fabric and other soft materials, but also took part in painting, designing and production of batik garments. All these activities did not make her happy, and she could not sustain herself financially. Then she decided to concentrate on paintings.
Things that you can comfort with, you can live with it. Because for the beginners, they have to find things and it's not easy to get all the materials. So first, you have to survive. Second stage, after you survive, you want to find yourself. There's a long way until that you become famous because of something in the painting itself. So it's comfort because it comes like it's not a day or a month or a year. It's going to be continued maybe until you die.
Shima has been concentrating her creative works on paintings for nearly 2 decades. Her artworks mainly reflect traditional houses as imagery. She wants to spill the colors of her childhood experiences onto the canvas consciously.
This is from the experience before that you have. You see things, you see something that inspired you, that is the one that comfortable with, so that you just go on with that subject. Like a house is something that we experienced before. We live in those kind of houses, traditional, that which is in our childhood. We grown up there, and it's in the memory because we don't have it anymore.
Within the imagery of traditional houses, Shima does not only want to have nostalgic gratification, but also represent Malaysian multiculturalism in her paintings.
If you are Malay, there was the influences in the houses. If you are Indian, there were some images that shows. So this is what all about Malaysian multicultural. We have huge things to explore. It's something about our country. It's something about Malaysia in a way of you create it.
Devotion, patience, tolerance, commitment and inherent creative capacity are the fundamental qualities of an artist. Being an artist, Shima always feels the challenges of creating a new painting.
I think the challenge is the artist itself. How they going to create good work, good artwork that you can show that to the public. That is the most challenging, because whether the public can accept it or not, and you can think whether you can continue with this career or not.
Once the painting is completed, Shima has a happy moment. It is a kind of great winning.
Happy moment, you've been rewarded. You won something. You've been, like I said, rewarded means whether you winning some contest or you've been rewarded because of your artwork being chosen for some reason of, your painting was in that certain place, which is people are looking up at it.
Being an artist is not always good. On many occasions, Shima has had very bad experiences within her society.
At the first step, you've been ignored because they say that your artwork is not going anywhere. It's very disappointed.
Like Shima, 21 other artists have been working in the artist colony. The colony is a traditional village-based art center where artists from different fields and expertise do their works. There are 11 government-subsidized walk-ups, open-air wooden shelters built for artists within the craft complex in Kuala Lumpur. In the village, artists do not only create artworks, but also conduct various educational activities, such as teaching, training, and observational programs.
That's how you get the color, okay? Wherever you do, you must.
Just a comment on my art.
Every artist working in this village has their own style and creativity. They have been working with different mediums, forms, and compositions. Their different artistic talents create their distinct identity. However, they have a common practice of promoting the Malaysian way of living and culture.
I'm the one who did the painting about art, Malaysian naive art, to promote Malaysia, especially when the tourists come over here, what they can bring back to visit Malaysia while they are on tourism. So to present my country, so they know what is Malaysia they have.
My subject is more to flora and fauna, and this is, as you can see here, this is more to semi-abstract artwork, and I'm really concentrate on the texture series, and this is considered my latest series.
It's my painting normally my environment, normally my family like this. This my family, my son, my daughter look together. The title is together. That's mean
well, I create a watercolor on a theme of the mangrove swamps of Malaysia. I travel from north to south just to record all the pictures, all the picturesque view of the mangrove. And back at home, I'll record it on my paper with watercolor.
A lot of Malaysian artists, they use a lot of images from surrounding, like historical buildings, like the traditional costume, something like that. So I think that shows that Malaysian art scene, they have their own style.
Artists have their own particular perspectives and viewpoints to observe the surroundings and lives. They are born with certain natural gifts and talents. They also develop exceptionally critical senses. They do recreation of the reality onto canvases. Their artworks are like mirrors that reflect different dimensions of local reality. The tourists, however, prefer local motifs in the artworks.
It's quite interesting to see some modern art. This complex is very interesting because there's a lot of different types of art and craft.
This is very different, and I particularly like her use of colours in the repeated motifs that she's got on display here.
I very like Malaysian art because this one is very colorful and sketch was very beautiful.
Although the artists have been contributing a lot to promote the Malaysian culture internationally, they are under the wave of extreme stress. They have been struggling with hard times just to survive.
not enough income to survive, to get the sourcing, like selling the painting, to make you alive. That is the most important in their mind. Besides, they want to produce a good work.
Audience has to have to appreciate Malaysian art more.
Di Malaysia ni dari segi pasaran mungkin belum luas. To survive as an artist is quite tough at the moment now. It depends on the how you tackle the customer and how they like it your painting or not. That's the only way.
Struggle a lot to keep on survive and keep on doing your work, because many artists you can find they do halfway.
The major buyers of Malaysian artworks are foreign visitors. However, due to severe global economic recession, the official statistics of the Malaysian Tourism Ministry show that the inflow of foreign tourists are very unpredictable. This has immensely affected the sale of artwork. Artists have no choice but to bear the pain.
We have to think about to promote Malaysian art. Malaysian artists have to try to find the funding, so and from that way they can promote themselves. If we want to ask government to help us, in that way also can, but the government have a lot of things to think about, so artists should think their own way. I think like Malaysian government have to must start to collect artwork from the artists, like their government department. They have a lot of department. They have to start to buy artwork.
Artists like Shima are struggling against a dire situation to overcome. After investing their golden age in the field, artists are continuously creating their arts and seeking the support from society. Shima has taken these circumstances as a school of life. She has a strong commitment and beautiful dreams to be the best artist possible.
You have to sell the painting to survive, to get the money to buy the food or to pay any bills. But then when that problem is solved, or you get a way to solve the problem, I think it's going to be, you learn like in a school, but this is not a formal school. It's like a life school. I want to create something of your own brand, of your own mark in your country. You are not being comparing with other artists. That is the most that most artists wanted. But it's not going to be happen in one day.
Artisan artworks are an integral part of any society. Despite the extreme stress on their minds, they document the contemporary history of social reality. They also make many significant contributions to social transformation, critiquing evil elements and innovating new ideas. The life of an artist is never smooth like a straight line. However, one cannot imagine life without art.
This is The World This Week, your weekly roundup of the latest international events and updates. This is me, Bhavana Casey. In this edition, we bring you the stories making headlines across the globe, from major political developments to geopolitical tensions and alliances, cultural celebrations and remarkable feats. We have all that you need. Let's begin with developments on U.S. President Trump's state visit to China. As global attention focused on shifting geopolitical alignments, Trump held high-stakes talks with his Chinese counterpart in Beijing during his three-day state visit. Trump said the meeting was very successful and unforgettable, while Xi called it a historic and landmark visit. U.S. President Donald Trump has wrapped up a three-day state visit to China after high-level talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping focused on trade, regional security, and energy cooperation. Trump departed Beijing on Friday, following what both sides described as a significant round of discussions, marking the first visit by a sitting U.S. president to China after 2017. The two leaders held formal talks at the Great Hall of the People before attending cultural events and a state banquet hosted by Xi. Discussions reportedly covered Iran, global oil supply routes, and economic ties between the world's two largest economies. Speaking before his departure, Trump described the visit as a very successful, world-renowned, and unforgettable, and said he looked forward to hosting Xi in Washington.
We had extremely positive and productive conversations and meetings today with the Chinese delegation earlier, and this evening is another cherished opportunity to discuss among friends some of the things that we discussed today, all good for the United States and for China, and it was a great honor to be with you. Please.
Chinese President Xi called the visit historic and landmark, while officials on both sides signaled interest in maintaining communication despite ongoing geopolitical tensions.
这次的访问是一个历史性的、标志性的访问。这个迄今我们已经达成了一个新的两国关系，就是建设性的战略稳定关系。这个可以说是一个里程碑式的。 这个访问事件，而且我们达成了很多这个合作的成果的文件。
Trump also claimed that China had agreed to continue supporting stability in the Strait of Hormuz and increase purchases of American oil, although no formal agreements were immediately released.
We did discuss Iran. We feel very similar to Iran. We want that to end. We don't want them to have a nuclear weapon. We want the straits open. We're closing it now. They closed it, and we closed it on top of them. But we want the straits open, and we want them to get it ended because it's a crazy thing. They're a little bit crazy.
The visit was closely watched by global markets and diplomats, with it being viewed as a key test of relations between Beijing and Washington amid continuing disputes over trade and regional influence. This was the first U.S. presidential visit to China in almost a decade after Xi previously hosted Trump in Beijing in November 2017. Just before U.S. President Trump headed to Beijing for high-stakes talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping, Iran rejected key elements of a U.S.-backed proposal aimed at ending the regional war, deepening diplomatic uncertainty, and rattling global energy markets. Iran's foreign ministry has said it has called for an end to the war across the region and the release of frozen assets abroad in its response to the latest U.S. proposal. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Ismail Baghai in a weekly press briefing said Iran's demands include an end to the war in the region, ending the U.S. naval blockade, and the release of assets belonging to the Iranian people, which have for years been unjustly trapped in foreign banks.
تنها چیزی که مطالبه کردیم حقوق مشروع ایران بوده. من قضاوت رو به شما و مردممون واگذار میکنم که آیا مطالبه ایران برای خاتمه جنگ در منطقه، مطالبه ایران برای توقف راهزنی دریایی علیه کشتی‌های ایران، اونچه که تحت عنوان محاصره دریایی اسمش گذاشتند، مطالبه ایران برای آزاد شدن دارایی‌های متعلق به مردم ایران که سالهاست به ناحق به خاطر فشار آمریکا در بانک‌های خارجی محبوس شده، آیا اینها مطالبه زیاده خواهانه است؟ پیشنهاد ما برای این که در تنگه هرمز تردد ایمن صورت بگیره آیا مطالبه زیاده خواهانه است؟
The US had proposed an end to fighting before starting talks on more contentious issues, including Iran's nuclear program. Tehran also included a demand for compensation for war damage and emphasized Iranian sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump said he has rejected Iran's response to a US proposal for ending the Middle East war, deeming it totally unacceptable, and warned that Washington will not compromise on security demands. Following Trump's response, oil prices have risen as international oil benchmark Brent rose by 4.1% to $105.50 a barrel in Asian trade before falling slightly. Energy prices have shrunk widely since the start of the conflict, while Brent crude has risen back over $100 a barrel since the ceasefire came into effect on 8th of April. The key Strait of Hormuz waterway has been effectively shut since shortly after the war started on 28 February, disrupting global supplies of oil and gas. As the Iran conflict continues to dominate international diplomacy, foreign ministers from the BRICS bloc gathered in New Delhi, where discussions were heavily shaped by rising geopolitical tensions and growing energy insecurity. Foreign ministers from the BRICS bloc, including Russia and Iran, have met in New Delhi for high-level talks dominated by the ongoing war in Iran and its widening impact on global energy security and economic stability. India, which holds the BRICS chair this year, is hosting the expanded grouping that now includes countries such as Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates, some of which remain divided over the conflict triggered by the United States and Israel on February the 28th. Opening the two-day meeting, India's Foreign Minister Subramanyam Jaishankar warned that the world is experiencing considerable flux, with conflicts driving uncertainty in global trade, fuel supplies, and energy security.
We meet at a time of considerable flux in international relations. Ongoing conflicts, economic uncertainties, and challenges in trade and technology and climate are shaping the global landscape. There is a growing expectation, particularly from emerging markets and developing countries, that BRICS will play a constructive and stabilizing role. In this background, our discussions today are an opportunity to reflect on global and regional developments and to consider practical ways to strengthen our cooperation.
The war in Iran and the resulting fuel crisis took center stage at the BRICS meeting, overshadowing broader economic cooperation as member states confront widening geopolitical divisions and rising energy insecurity. Separately, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov met his Iranian counterpart Abbas Araghchi on the sidelines of the summit in New Delhi, with discussions focused on diplomatic efforts to end the ongoing armed conflict in the Middle East. According to the Russian Foreign Ministry, the two sides reviewed the course of negotiations to settle the armed conflict unleashed by the United States and Israel in the Middle East, underscoring Moscow's continued engagement with Tehran amid escalating regional tensions. Amid widening global divisions and the Iran conflict, Russian President Vladimir Putin used Victory Day commemorations in Moscow to signal a confidence that the war in Ukraine may be nearing its end, while blaming Western nations for prolonging the conflict. Russian President Vladimir Putin has said he thinks Russia's conflict with Ukraine is coming to an end, addressing reporters after a scaled-back military parade in Moscow, marking the Soviet victory in World War II. Putin also criticized Western countries for helping Ukraine.
Все замечательно пообещали помощь и начали раскручивать противостояние с Россией, которое продолжается до сих пор. Я думаю, что дело идет к завершению, но все-таки это серьезная вещь.
Putin's comments came just hours after he used his Victory Day's parade to justify the war. In that speech, he said Russia was fighting a just war and called Ukraine an aggressive force that was being armed and supported by the whole bloc of NATO. Russia's annual parade lacked the usual display of tanks and missiles due to security concerns, as officials feared Ukraine might target Red Square with drones. For the first time in nearly 2 decades, there was no military hardware at the Red Square parade, which the Kremlin normally showcases to project Russian military power on the international stage. Meanwhile, a last-minute ceasefire between Moscow and Kiev brokered by U.S. President Donald Trump reduced the danger of any attack, and the parade passed off without any incident. Russian forces seized Crimea and parts of eastern Ukraine in 2014, then launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. Putin said he will only meet Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky once a lasting peace deal has been agreed to. Putin said he had heard that Zelensky was ready to hold a personal meeting, but added that this is not the first time he has heard such statements. As part of the US-led ceasefire deal over the weekend, Kiev and Moscow agreed to a swap of 1,000 prisoners from each country. But Putin said on Saturday that Russia had not yet heard from Ukraine about any exchanges. Beyond global politics and health concerns, Thailand has intensified crackdowns on transnational crime, seizing a record ivory shipment in the country's biggest wildlife trafficking bust in recent years.
Thai authorities have announced one of the largest ivory seizures in recent years, intercepting a major smuggling attempt involving 250 kilograms of African elephant tusk. The operation marks the biggest ivory confiscation in more than a decade and highlights the continued challenge of illegal wildlife trafficking in the region. According to police, 9 suspects have been detained in connection with the case. The group is accused of attempting to illegally sell the tusk through social media platforms, particularly Facebook, using covert accounts and encrypted communication to arrange transactions with potential buyers. Investigators believe the network was part of a wider transnational smuggling chain, moving protected wildlife products from Africa into Southeast Asia. Authorities said the ivory was carefully concealed to avoid detection during transport and was intended for sale in small, high-value batches to evade law enforcement scrutiny. The seizure was made after an extended surveillance operation, during which officers monitored online activity and tracked suspicious listings linked to wildlife products. Officials from Thailand's wildlife and environmental agencies have praised the operation as a significant breakthrough in the fight against illegal ivory trade, which continues to threaten elephant populations despite international bans.
Turning to South Asia, concerns are growing over the preservation of historic heritage structures in India's capital. The once grand Mughal-era Havelis that stand as symbols of the city's rich architecture are increasingly falling into disrepair as preservation efforts struggle against time, urban pressure, and complex ownership disputes.
Once the grand residences of Mughal-era nobility, the Indian capital's palace-like homes, locally known as Havelis, now stand at a fragile crossroads. A handful lovingly restored, but many more sliding quietly into ruin. Across Old Delhi, cracked facades, shattered gateways and sagging balconies tell the story of a heritage under siege. These palace-like structures with the intricately carved doors, choroka balconies and sprawling courtyards were once symbols of wealth, power and artistry, reflecting centuries of Delhi's rich cultural and architectural history. Today, however, the story is one of decay and neglect. For families like the Mathurs, preserving a Haveli is a labor of love. Ashok Mathur, 56, has lived in Mathur Ki Haveli for 5 generations.
So this house is touching about 130 plus years now, and you see that we haven't touched much of the architecture. We haven't disturbed much of the architecture except for the repairs that we keep doing it for maintaining it. And it's been a house for about 5 generations now for us.
While a few Havelis have been lovingly restored, the majority are succumbing to time, urban sprawl and complex ownership disputes that stall preservation efforts. Conservationist K.T. Ravindran says that many such Havelis suffer from unclear titles and multiple claimants.
It is in a condition of deterioration. That certainly is so, because not much investment has gone into the old city. All the investment is hogged by the new part of the city. Most Indian cities have this dichotomous condition of an old city and a new city. So all the investment, the new capital that flows into the city goes to the new part of the city, and the old part stays neglected.
It is also warned that without targeted restoration programs, legal clarity for ownership and public awareness, many Havelis could vanish, taking with them a tangible link to India's rich past.
Well, the selective restoration is actually becomes like a catalyst in the process of change, because people see that if this can be improved, why not my place? So they start thinking in terms of improvement, and that can actually kind of snowball into a larger movement,
Beyond the legal and financial hurdles, the physical upkeep of Havelis is itself a challenge. Residents who continue to live in these homes often must balance modern living needs with preservation, repairing roofs, replacing beams, and maintaining decorative details, all while keeping the spirit of the original architecture intact.
To futuristic innovation, South Korea is embracing artificial intelligence in entertainment with a new robot-themed park in Seoul, showcasing humanoid performances and immersive AI experiences. South Korean entertainment company Galaxy Corporation has launched a robot-themed park in Seoul featuring humanoid robot boxing matches, AI-powered performances, and K-pop dance shows as the country expands its push into next-generation entertainment and robotics technology. The newly opened facility combines interactive exhibits, live robot demonstrations, and immersive digital attractions, offering visitors a glimpse into what developers describe as a future where humans and robots coexist more closely in daily life. The park's attractions include robots performing choreographed dance routines, engaging in mock combat sports, and interacting directly with audiences through artificial intelligence systems designed to simulate conversation and emotional responses. Organizers say the concept blends education with entertainment to make advanced technology more accessible to younger audiences. Company officials say the project reflects rising commercial interest in integrating AI and robotics into mainstream entertainment industries, particularly in South Korea, where investment in emerging technologies has accelerated in recent years. Nature takes center stage in Turkey, where local Duden Lake has transformed into a thriving habitat, hosting nearly 40,000 birds from 180 species, as recent rainfall restored water levels and revived the surrounding ecosystem.
Turkey's Duden Lake is currently hosting nearly 40,000 migratory birds from around 180 different species. Known among locals as a flamingo paradise, the lake has become a vibrant refuge for wildlife following recent rainfall that significantly increased water levels and revived the surrounding ecosystem. Striking images of the migratory birds inhabiting the lake captured, including large flocks of flamingos, offered referred to in Anatolia as the crimson cranes. In addition to flamingos, the lake provides shelter for numerous bird species such as the white-headed duck, pied avocet, ferruginous duck, and Mediterranean gull. Covering an area of approximately 860 kilometers, the lake is fed by the Degir-Menazu stream and serves as a crucial breeding, feeding, and resting habitat for migratory birds traveling along regional migration routes.
Continuing Asia's cultural celebrations, thousands gathered in Hong Kong for the annual Tin Hau Birthday Parade, a centuries-old tradition featuring vibrant dragon processions and community festivities.
Thousands of residents and visitors line the Hong Kong streets of as the annual Tin Hau Birthday Parade returned to mark the birthday of Tin Hau, one of the most important traditional festivals in the southern Chinese communities. The parade, a long-standing cultural tradition in Yuen Long, was led by a 38-meter golden dragon weaving through the district's main roads. Festival participants and spectators reached out to touch the dragon, a gesture believed to bring prosperity, good health, and blessings for family and children. Following closely behind was a large raisin dragon, presented by the Junior Police Call campaign, using the traditional display to promote anti-fraud awareness messages to the public. The colorful procession attracted large crowds along the route, with many residents gathering early to watch the celebrations. Organizers said 33 teams took part in this year's parade, including rural fireworks groups and community organizations from across Yuen Long. The annual Tin Hau Festival falls on the 23rd day of the third lunar month in the Chinese calendar and is widely observed by fishing and coastal communities. The yuan-long procession has been held since 1963 as part of traditional prayers for favorable weather, safety, and abundant harvests.
As we wrap up this week's edition, Vietnam's Da Nang has emerged as one of Asia's top summer destinations for 2026, further strengthening its position on the global tourism map. Da Nang has been ranked second on Lonely Planet's list of the best destinations in Asia for the summer of 2026, highlighting the Vietnamese coastal city's growing international tourism appeal. Da Nang has been enlisted alongside several major Asian destinations, including Busan, Bali, Almaty, Sendai, and Mongolia's Altai Mountains. According to Lonely Planet, June is considered the ideal time to visit Da Nang, known for its coastline, beaches, and resort destinations in central Vietnam. Da Nang's latest recognition further strengthens its position on the international tourism map, particularly in beach tourism, luxury resorts, and outdoor travel experiences, as Vietnam continues to attract growing numbers of regional and international visitors. Well, this brings us to the end of this episode of The World This Week. We hope you enjoyed as much as we did bringing it to you. Also, do follow us on our website www.nepaltelevision.com, our social media handles, as well as our YouTube channel. We shall see you again next week with a new episode. Till then, take care and bye-bye.
In the high mountains, where the air thins and silence deepens, an ancient discipline endures. More than art, this is meditation in motion. A prayer woven into canvas, finding the divine within. This is Thangka.
Thangka भने चाहिँ त्यो समतल भूमि भने हो के हैन त्यो स्पेस भने हो त्यो रेसेमा पनि तपाईले सेतो गणमा स्पेस देख्यो हैन हो त्यसमा चाहिँ का लेख्ने भने चाहिँ बुद्धको वचन लेख्ने भने हो के त्यो बुद्धको वचन बागल चाहिँ त्यो चाहिँ शुद्ध छ हैन राम्रो छ त्यसले चाहिँ मानव जीवनलाई चाहिँ कल्याण मानव जीवनलाई मात्र नभएर प्राणी जगतलाई नै चाहिँ कल्याण गर्ने चिज हो थाङ्गा त्यही भएर चाहिँ जीवन जिउनेसँग चाहिँ रिलेटेड छ भनेर भने हो त्यो चाहिँ पञ्चतत्वको रूपमा चाहिँ त्यो चिनाएर त्यो तत्त्वलाई त्यो ठाउँमा जानुपर्छ भनेरको यो त आशयको रूपमा चाहिँ लगेको हुन्छ
Thangka painting is more than art. It's devotion on canvas, rooted in Buddha philosophy, traditions, and shaped by centuries of Buddhist influence. Each stroke tells a story of enlightenment.
This is not from painter's own mind. This is from the book. So painters, they have to strictly follow the rules. Through meditation, we can understand our true nature. And when we understand our true nature, we understand everybody. And our true nature is compassion. Our true nature is wisdom. And when we practice these things, we find peace, and that peace is permanent.
Thangka painting is not merely creation, it is consecration, rooted in Buddhist philosophy and perfected through centuries. Each brushstroke carries the weight of a mantra, each color a fragment of enlightenment.
खाइबो भन्छ हामीले चाहिँ आर्टिस्टलाई त्यो खाइबोले चाहिँ किन आएर चाहिँ ढोग्यो भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ तीनचोटि ढोग्यो नि त्यो शरण गमन गरे हो कि म बुद्धको शरणमा छु भन्ने हो त्यो चाहिँ बुद्ध चित्त उत्पात गर्ने भन्छ कि चित्त तपाईको शुद्ध हुनु पर्यो हैन त्यो शुद्ध भएर लेखेको थाङ्गाले चाहिँ अरूलाई पनि राम्रो गर्ने पनि प्राणी हितको लागि चाहिँ यो मैले गरेको लेखेको बुद्ध वचनले चाहिँ उहाँहरूलाई चाहिँ राम्रो होस् भन्ने आशाका साथ चाहिँ छोड्नुपर्छ कि हो यसरी चाहिँ लेखेको हुन्छ थाङ्गा चाहिँ
The Thangka is a visual scripture, a spiritual map to transcendence. Every artist begins not with imagination, but with surrender to discipline, devotion, and compassion for all living beings. To paint is to meditate. To complete is to awaken. In today's studios, the old and the new converge. Tutors like Sushan Subedi introduce curious travelers to ancient grammar of lines and color.
All of the painting you are seeing over here, so these are known as Thangka, which is a Tibetan word which means the painting that is painted on a cotton surface. Okay, so first of all what we do is, we just take a normal cotton like this and we stretch it on a wooden frame very hardly and very tightly. Okay, so while tying it very hard on normal cotton, what happens is there are some millions of tiny holes. So if you pour the color can bleed. So we cannot do the painting on a normal cotton. So we have a process, we call it the process of canvas.
While at nearby workshops, artists like Sonam still lose themselves in the ritual of creation.
यो चाहिँ बम्बई ड्याङ कटन जुन यसैबाट चाहिँ हाम्रो ट्रेडिसनल आर्टको चाहिँ थाङ्का फर्स्ट प्रोसेसिङ चाहिँ यहीँबाट हुन्छ सरेस भन्ने गरिन्छ हामीले यो चाहिँ खासमा र याक स्किन भनेर चाहिँ प्रयोग गरिन्छ पहिलेको त्यो हिस्ट्री हेर्दाखेरि चाहिँ अनि अब यो चाहिँ हाम्रो चाहिँ माध्यम चाहिँ यो ग्लुको काम गर्छ यसले चाहिँ यो र हामीले चाहिँ माटो मिसाएर चाहिँ यसमा पानी लगाएर अब यसको कति मात्रा उ गरेर तताइसकेपछि चाहिँ अनि अब हामीले कत्रो क्यानभस बनाउने कतिवटा बनाउने त्यो हिसाबले हामीले यो सरेस माटो भनिन्छ त्यो मिलाएर मात्रा मिलाएर हामीले प्रोसेसिङमा जानु सकिन्छ हामीले चाहिँ यो क्यानभस बनाउँदाखेरि समय अनुसार मौसम अनुसारले पनि बनाउनु पर्ने हुन्छ घाम लाग्ने बेलामा बनाउनु सक्यो भने हामीले छिटो आफ्नो कामहरु छिटो छरिदो बनाउन सकिन्छ र झरी पर्ने बेलामा चाहिँ हामीलाई निकै समय लाग्छ त्यसले गर्दाखेरि यो घाम लाग्ने बेलामा हामीले बनाउन सक्यौं भने छिटो अनि यसलाई आफुलाई चाहिने मात्रामा पटक पटक यता दुई साइडमा चाहिँ क्लिन गर्नु सफा गर्नुपर्ने हुन्छ अनि कतिको मात्रा हामीलाई चाहिन्छ त्यो पुगिसकेपछि हामीले त्यसपछि स्केचमा जानुपर्ने हुन्छ यो सुकिसकेपछि चाहिँ एउटा यसरी पनि हामीले चेक गर्न सकिन्छ हामीले कतिको तयारी भयो भएन यो आवाज आउनु पर्ने हुन्छ जस्तै अब ओसिएको छ भने बेग्लै आवाज आउँछ सुकेको छ भने राम्रो आवाज आउँछ यो
Thangka painting begins with the canvas stretched tight, once upon wood, now upon iron frames. The glue that seals it, once drawn from the yak, now sourced from the maple or synthesized in a lab. Yet in the scent of drying paste, the artist still reads the readiness of the soul of the painting.
So after the sketching is done, second thing we do is the coloring. So while coloring, we have different levels of artists in our school. Like from the beginner level, we have intermediate and the master level of artists. So if you go with the beginner intermediate, they use the acrylic colors. But if you go with the master level of artists, so they use the stone colors like this. Okay, so why they use the stone color is stone being a natural color. So while we apply this sort of color in the art, it remains for the longer period of time because natural thing, it doesn't have expiry date. Yeah, so the meaning and the philosophy of an art, the art itself, it is preserved for the longer period of time. So that's why they use the stone. And for the finishing of an art, so we use 24 karat real gold on the painting. Okay, so why we use the gold is not to make the painting very expensive, but if you see in Hinduism, in Buddhism, gold it is signified as in purity. So to purify the meaning and the philosophy behind the art, so we use 24 karat real gold.
Every line follows a rule, every proportion holds meaning. The face of the deity isn't imagined, it slowly reveals itself, guided by sacred patterns that keep harmony between the world outside and the spirit within. The colors come from the earth, crushed stones and minerals mixed with glue, made to last for generations. Lapis brings purity, malachite speaks of compassion, and cinnabar carries wisdom. These are just colors, they are prayers in pigment.
प्राचीन कालमा चाहिँ यो थाङ्गा चाहिँ पाँचवटा कलर लेख्ने हो। पाँच कलर जस्तो अग्नि तत्त्व, वायु तत्त्व, माटो तत्त्व, हावा तत्त्व, पाँच तत्त्वले बनाएको हो। त्यो पाँच तत्त्वले किन बनाएको भने त्यो पाँच तत्त्वबाट हाम्रो शरीर बनाएको छ नि। यो थाङ्गा भनेको चाहिँ वास्तवमा के हो भने जे जति थाङ्गामा छ त्यो हामीसँगै छ। जे हामीसँग त्यो थाङ्गामै छ। त्यसकारण त्यो बेला चाहिँ त्यो नेचुरल हामी पनि नेचुरली बनाएको हो नि त। प्रकृतिले बनाएको नि। थाङ्गा पनि प्रकृति नै हो। त्यसमा अलिक अहिले चाहिँ कलर के छ भने पाँचवटा कलरमा हामीले मिसाउँदाखेरि अर्को कलर बन्छ। त्यो पाँचवटा कलर मात्रै पुग्दैन। त्यो बेला त्यो रियालिटी थाङ्गाबाट नजिक बसेर साधना गर्दा हामीलाई त्यो भाइब्रेसन आउँछ, पोजिटिभ कुरा आउँछ। यो त खालि बुद्धले टिकाको टिचिङ गर्नुभएको नेचुरल फेनोमेना छ नि, नेचर माइन्ड छ नि, त्योसँग रिलेटेड छ यो।
Hom Bahadur Tamang, a gifted Thanga artist from the spiritual heart of Buddha, has turned his craft into a global bridge between tradition and business.
थाङ्गा चाहिँ मैले 1970 सिक्न सुरुवात गरेको। मेरो टिचर चाहिँ म भन्दा अघिल्लो मेरो दाइ हो, साइला दाइ। मेरो चाहिँ बाउपादेखि नै कलाकार हुनुहुन्थ्यो। पाटन, भक्तपुर, छामेल, दरबार स्क्वायरमा यसै पसल बेच्ने काम हुन्थ्यो। अनि त्यो बेच्दा मैले यो थाङ्गा चाहिँ विदेशीले किन्दो रहेछ, आफैले विदेशसँग बेच्नुपर्छ भन्ने अलिकति मनमा मलाई अलिकति सोच आयो। त्यसपछि मैले 2050 सालमा यहाँ सुरु गरेँ, आजभन्दा 32 वर्ष अगाडि।
What began as a young artist's journey through the streets of Kathmandu has blossomed into a thriving enterprise where sacred art meets business and tourism. With every brushstroke, Hom brings Nepal's rich spiritual heritage to the world, transforming Thanga painting into a symbol of cultural fusion.
त्यो बेला चाहिँ पसल कोही पनि यहाँ थिएन, किनभने त्यो मार्केटले चाहिँ कहाँ मार्केट हुन्छ भन्ने खोज्दो रहेछ। त्यो खोज्ने क्रममा म यहाँ आइपुग्यो। विदेशीहरू पनि यहाँ त्यति अहिले जस्तो बस्दैन, 5 मिनट 10 मिनटमा घुमेर जानुहुन्थ्यो। त्यतिखेर खाने रेस्टुरेन्ट पनि एकजना मात्रै थियो, एउटा मात्रै थियो। अहिले चाहिँ होस् त्यो बेला र अहिलेमा धेरै आकाश जमिनको फरक भएको छ।
His story is one of passion, innovation, and a deep commitment to preserving tradition while embracing the future.
विशेष गरी यो बौद्ध स्तूपसँग रिलेटेड छ। यो बुद्धको शिक्षासँग रिलेटेड यो थाङ्गा चाहिँ संसारको मानिसहरू यो स्तूपलाई घुम्ने क्रममा यो प्रार्थना गर्ने मेन आउने ठाउँ चाहिँ यो रहेछ। त्यसो भएको हुनाले यो चाहिँ विशेष गरी ओल्ड हेरिटेज साइटमा चाहिँ त्यो पनि के हो बुद्धिस्टको भएको हुनाले चाहिँ नेपालभरिको नै थाङ्का बिक्ने ठाउँ चाहिँ अति महत्त्वपूर्ण चाहिँ यो नै हो वास्तवमा, किनभने रिलेटेड छ यो बुद्धसँग।
From the hills of Ramechhap to the heart of Bodh, Khom Bahadur Damang has a glorious story to tell. A story of will, determination, struggle and success.
म आफै पनि रामेछाप दुर्गम जिल्लामा जन्मेको, रोजगार छैन, त्यहाँ स्कुल छैन, कलेज छैन, हस्पिटल छैन, रोजगार छैन। त्यसपछि म पनि रोजगारकै क्रममा यहाँ आएर मैले सुरुवात गर्यो। अहिले चाहिँ म लगभग 49 वर्ष भयो यही पेसा गरेर दाल भात खाएको। अब नयाँ पुस्तालाई पनि मैले हस्तान्तरण गर्नुपर्छ है भन्ने मेरो एउटा उद्देश्यले चाहिँ अहिले मैले नयाँ पुस्तालाई चाहिँ गाउँबाट आउनुहुन्छ स्कुल सकेर अनि बिहान चाहिँ कलेज जानुहुन्छ, दिउँसो काम छैन। त्यस कारणले मैले 3 महिना फ्री ट्रेनिङ दिने गरेको छ। उहाँको स्किल अनुसार टेस्ट गरेर हामीले यहीँ तलब दिएर जस्तो बिहान कलेज पनि भ्यायो उसो कति हो त्यसो त्यहाँबाट एक्स्ट्रा टाइम चाहिँ 5 घण्टा 6 घण्टा 7 घण्टा पनि यहाँ जीवन चलाउने चाहिँ काम भइरहेछ अहिले।
For 49 years, he painted, taught and empowered young artisans. Today, his school preserves tradition and creates futures.
हामीले यहाँ सुरुमा इन्टरभ्यू लिन्छु, त्यसपछि 1 हप्ता चाहिँ नि सानो र क्यानभासमा हात ट्रेनिङ दिन्छु, त्यसको शरीरको बडीहरू अलिकति ट्रेनिङ दिन्छु अनि 1 हप्तापछि ओके भनेर ओके या यस भने कोही मानिस नसक्ने चाहिँ नि आधा घन्टामा 1 घन्टामा उठेर गइहाल्छ। म सक्दैन, ढाड दुख्यो, किन उसको मन धेरै भएर गयो, त्यो सक्दैन, ऊ आउँदैन, एक दिन पनि आउँदैन। मात्रै आँखा चाहिँ हुनु पर्यो। हामीले अपाङ्गलाई पनि सिकाएको छ, जस्तो बाहिर कान नसुन्ने सिकाएको छ, आँखा चाहिँ हुनु पर्यो, त्यस्तै हो।
As interest in Buddhism grows worldwide, so does the appreciation for our sacred art. Foreigners now come not just to admire but to learn, studying our architecture techniques and meditative Thanka traditions, giving new life to what was once known only within our borders.
बुद्धिज्म नेपाल हो। नेपालमा जति छन् विश्व सम्पदामा सूचीमा भएको मठ मन्दिर गुम्बद छ, यसैबाट उहाँले पनि सिकेको वास्तवमा। यो जुन बौद्ध स्तूपरा भनौँ लुम्बिनी त्यो जस्तो त उहाँहरूले बनाउन सक्दैन, तर यसको चाहिँ एकदम महत्त्वपूर्ण के छ भगवान या चाहिँ दोस्रो तेस्रो बुद्धको रिलेटिक यहाँ छ। जति चाहिँ अहिले संसारमा यो बुद्धिज्म फैलिँदै जान्छ, यो महायान बुद्धिज्म त्यत्तिकै ठाङ्गको भ्यालु चाहिँ बढ्दैछ अहिले। जस्तो मेरै कुरा मैले 40-45 वर्ष यति ठाङ्गको महत्त्व थिएन, किनभने वर्ल्ड वाइडमा बुद्धिज्ममा थिएन, विदेशहरूले जानेकै थिएन। उनीहरूले त्यो सुरसुर आउँदाखेरि सानो एउटा नेपाल आउँदाखेरि सुपर नेट किन नलैजाऊ भन्ने मात्रै लाइन्थ्यो। अहिले चाहिँ उहाँहरू चाहिँ जस्तो अमेरिका, युरोप, तपाईँको यो सिङ्गापुर, ताइवान, मलेसिया विभिन्न देशमा चाहिँ अहिले बुद्धिस्ट प्र्याक्टिसनर धेरै उहाँहरू चाहिँ गर्नुहुन्छ। त्यसको लागि चाहिँ एकदमै महत्त्वपूर्ण छ। त्यस कारणले भविष्यमा यो थाङ्गा चाहिँ छ, यसको मार्केट छ।
As an artist, entrepreneur and a master, he feels fulfilled, creating beauty, guiding others and living with purpose.
मैले संसार जीवन जगतलाई थाहा पायो। अहिले हामी सांसारिक जीवन छ, सांसारिक जीवनमा कसरी जिउने र अर्कोलाई पनि कसरी जिउन दिने कला थाहा पायो। त्यसपछि अब जुन देशमा जन्मे पनि जुन कुलमा जन्मे पनि 100% निश्चित के हो भने मृत्यु छ। त्यो त निश्चित हो नि, एउटै निश्चित छैन, कहिले पनि निश्चित छैन। तर त्यो मर्नेमा म कसरी मर्ने भन्ने कला पनि थाहा पाएँ मैले। मलाई त धेरै परिवर्तन भएको छ। मैले परिवर्तन भयो भने के हुन्छ, मैले ठुलो पचेरो चढ्यो, ठुलो गाडी त्यस्तो होइन, तर मलाई खुसी छ। सादा दाल भात खान पाएछ, मैले परिवार पाल्नु पाएछ। यही थाङ्गाले म जापान घुम्यो, युरोप गयो, चाइना घुम्यो, बुद्धिस्ट कन्ट्री सबै घुमेको छ। सबै ठाउँमा मैले घुम्नलाई मलाई पैसाको आपत पनि परेन। थाङ्गा सँगसँगै लाँदै ब्रिफिङ गर्दै बेच्दै दर्शन बेचेको हो। त्यस कारण मलाई त एकदम खुसी छु म त पनि।
Then comes the awakening, the eyes. Until that moment, the thangka is silent. When the artist paints the peoples, the deity is invited to reside within. The canvas breathes, the prayer begins. From quiet Himalayan ateliers to the galleries in Tokyo, Berlin, and New York, thangkas now travel far beyond the monasteries. They adorn homes, museums, and collectors' walls, a global symbol of Nepal's artistic devotion.
And mostly, thangka word itself is a Tibetan word, so this tradition belongs to Tibetan people. This tradition belongs to Tamang. This tradition belongs to Newar community. Although they have different expression of color, technique, the detail, but this tradition, this culture belongs to this three community, and this is kind of passed on tradition. They learn this skill from their father, forefather, to the new generation. This is how this tradition has been continuing and preserving. So it is beneficial for them to live their life, and it is beneficial for the country because this is a culture, and culture and tradition is the treasure of each country.
The trade sustains thousands. From the hum of Bodha's alleys to export crates bound for distant lands, thangka has become a vital thread in Nepal's creative economy. Yet, as markets grow, so does the tension between faith and fame, between meditation and merchandise.
कला चाहिँ दुवै राम्रै हो हैन आफ्नो आफ्नै फिलोसफी भन्ने हो यसले चाहिँ तपाईको मन भित्रको डेप्थमा जाने सिकाउने हो यसमा चाहिँ यो चाहिँ मिहिन काम हुन्छ कठिन पनि हुन्छ के किनभने यसमा चाहिँ तपाईले चाहिँ अघिको जस्तो धेरै चीजहरु चाहिँ लिनुपर्छ अनुशासन लिनु पर्यो हैन यसको विधि विधानमा बसेर गर्नुपर्छ यसमा चाहिँ अब त्यो चाहिँ तपाईको मनमा जुन फिलिङ्स आउँछ त्यो लेखिहाल्ने हो के त्यो गर्दाखेरि त्यसले पनि वर्ल्डमा चलिरहेछ यसले चाहिँ नेपालले किन अब त्यसलाई चाहिँ कम्पिटिसन गर्न सक्छ भने चाहिँ यो चीज चाहिँ अरूले गर्न सक्दैन किनभने त्यसमा मेडिटेसन ध्यान जस्तै गर्नुपर्छ के सरकारी स्कुलबाट चाहिँ स्कुलिङ देखि नै गर्नुपर्छ यसको पाठ्यक्रमहरु बनाउनु पर्छ हैन एउटा त्यो गरिसकेपछि यसको प्रमोट हुन्छ हैन हामीलाई चाहिने त त्यो प्रवर्धन हो नि तर ब्याङ्किङहरुले पनि के गर्नु पर्यो भने यसलाई चाहिँ बिना दिदोमा पनि के रे ऋण दिने वातावरण हैन कलाकारको के छुटाएर के अनि तपाईको हामीले ट्याक्स तिर्नु पर्छ ट्याक्स तिर्दाखेरि पनि कुनै एउटा चीज चाहिँ कलाकारलाई कुन ओदामा राखेर त्यसको एउटा ब्यालेन्स एउटा गरेर सरकारले गरिदियो भने यसको जन अझ फ्रस्टिन्छ के फ्रस्टिएपछि त यो नेपालकै लागि चाहिँ यसले चाहिँ पर्यटनलाई पनि विकास हुने अनि त्यो स्कुल कलेजमा भयो भने पुस्तक हस्तान्तरण चाहिँ एकदम दिगो हुन्छ के
All the thangka has same meaning of peace. So foreigner, they admire philosophy. Practitioner also, they choose deities mostly to practice, to visualize, and they imagine the quality of deities with themselves. And some least person, they want it as a souvenir to decorate for the positive vibe. Some they buy it for the gift for their loved one. Philosophy reminds us about the beautiful quality, and that quality gives us peace, and that peace is everyone searching for. So thangka painting is very, very important for everyone because it is relevant with our life. If it is relevant with our life, that is truth.
But beyond commerce and canvas, a thangka is still a mirror, reflecting a way of life where art and spirit breathe as one. Every brush that moves today carries the echo of generations, an unbroken whisper from monastery walls to the modern world. As the sun sets over the Himalayas, somewhere an artist bows before a finished thangka. His work is now complete, his prayer released. For in every stroke lies a journey, from pigment to prayer, from devotion to eternity. This is not just Nepal's art, it is Nepal's soul, painted into time.
It is no more the remote far west, but the wonderful west. Nine districts are in the far west province, from the low-lying Tarai to the heightening mountains. Climatically, the province has all tropical weather conditions prevailing in Nepal. This makes the province a paradise for tourists of all interests. Khaptad, Badimalika, Api and Saipal mountains, Sumi and Ghodagodi lakes, Ramarosan area, Dodara Chandani, Sukla Fata Wildlife Reserve, Tikapur Botanical Garden, Amargari Fort. Dhangadi, the province headquarters, is the gateway to the state. The business hub of the far west region, Dhangadi, is becoming well equipped for political, trade and business infrastructures and other human resources. The far west region of Nepal is blessed with natural beauty. Any traveler is attracted by this epitome of beauty and a gift of Mother Nature. In addition to the natural beauty of the region, you can see the human civilizations rich in culture and arts throughout the province. The people of this region enjoy their unique lifestyle identified by their culture, language and religion. The far west region has the wealth of nature, culture and religious uniqueness to offer to every traveler. Khaptad. The Khaptad National Park, spreading across 4 districts of Doti, Acham, Bajang and Bajura of the far west province, is situated at an altitude of 3,000 meters above the sea level. The natural splendor and breathtaking views revealing geography's diversity is a sight to remember for every nature lover. This is the land of penance, where Kaptad Baba lived for 50 years in his pursuit of knowledge and enlightenment. There are 22 Patans and the famous Triveni temple in Kaptad. The natural splendor of Kaptad area is attracting many domestic and foreign tourists by the day. Trekking in the Kaptad region is a lifetime experience, especially with the numerous species of birds, wildlife, flora and fauna in the numerous trails. Kaptad is the meeting point of 4 districts: Doti, Acham, Bazang and Basura. A chaste land of Kaptad Baba, an important place for religious tourism. Special prayers and worship are offered in the place during the famous Dasara fair. Some of the major attractions in the region: Badi Malika. Situated 4,200 meters above the sea level, Badi Malika is a famous religious site in remote Bajura district of the far west province. The annual fair on the occasion of Janai Purnima draws thousands of devotees at the Badi Malika temple. Lush green meadows, pure waterfalls, and whistling ravines flowing downstream are the major attractions of the natural wonder. Thousands of domestic and foreign tourists flock the temple every year during the fair and other times as well. Badi Malika is popular among people in the far west and Karnali provinces. However, few people from Kathmandu and Gadwal of India also visit this site for pilgrimage. The famous pilgrimage site in Bajura district of far west province, Badi Malika. There is a popular belief that offering worship to deity Badi Malika fulfills one's wishes. Large fair takes place every year on Janai Purnima. The Badi Malika temple on top of a hill. The 22 Patans, various species of flowers, panoramic view of the mountain range. Only a few small tea shops are seen as amenities in this area. One can reach Badi Malika by taking a flight from Nepalganj to Kolti airport of Bajura. Day-long drive from Kolti followed by 3 days of walk. Suklafata. Suklafata National Park is a world-famous destination for those interested in wildlife. The main attraction of the park is the large grassy meadows where the Bara singers are seen in big numbers. The flock in the park is said to be the largest in the world. The park is home to 46 mammals, including endangered Bengal tiger, elephant, and anjir, and over 423 species of birds. The national park offers elephant ride and jungle safari to tourists as major recreational activities. The national park along Nepal-India border in Kanchanpur district is famous for watching wild elephants and barasingha, a heaven for wildlife enthusiasts. The attractions: grassy meadows, swamps and wetlands. Ramaroshan, located in Acham district of Nepal at an altitude of 2,500 meters above the sea level. Ramaroshan is a jewel for tourists in the Far West province. The fort that witnessed the bravery of Kaji Amar Singh Thapa in the unification campaign of Nepal is strategically located at the top of a hill in the district headquarters of Dariltura. General Thapa established his administrative headquarters in the fort itself during the campaign. This is an interesting site for researchers and archaeological explorers. Mostly domestic and Indian tourists visit this fort. The Far West province has dozens of existing and new tourism destinations. From a breathtaking mountain range to famous temples, the province has tourism destinations for all types of travelers to engage them for even a month. As many tourism destinations are in Far West province, so is the potential of the province. Most of the tourists in the province come for travel and research. However, lack of proper infrastructures discourage many enthusiasts. The Far West province has not been able to welcome desired number of tourists in the absence of the amenities.
Nepal government invites Gen Z for dialogue on constitutional amendment, clarifies process as consultations enter final stage. Nepal's unaccounted public funds crossed 7 trillion mark. Auditor General flagged widespread financial irregularities. Nepal outlines budget priorities ahead of May end presentation. Experts raise questions over implementation. Nepal government pushes administrative reform for efficiency and cost reduction. Province governments downsizing the number of ministries. US rejects Iran's 14-point peace proposal. Clear issue remarks a sticking point as war talks stall. And Nepal Sports Council lifts ANFA suspension. Move restores normal football governance. Hello there, welcome to NTV World News Hour. We are coming live from Kathmandu at 2200 hours Nepal time. Now the news in details. A government-appointed task force preparing a discussion paper for a possible consultation amendment has called on Gen Z representatives for constructive dialogue. The initiatives comes amid reported confusion ahead of scheduled talks, with officials urging all sides to engage positively. Task Force Coordinator Ashim Shah said the objective is to incorporate suggestions from all stakeholders before finalizing the draft. He also clarified that previous agreements with the former government are currently in the implementation phase and the formation of a Gen Z Council has reached its final stage. The task force will collect inputs through both oral and written submissions during the consultation process. Nepal's Office of the Auditor General has reported that the country's total unaccounted funds have surged to over 7 trillion rupees, according to its latest annual report for fiscal year 2024-25. The report states that unaccounted amounts have reached 7,055 billion rupees, highlighting major financial discrepancies across government and public institutions. During the year, auditors examined accounts worth 9,484,500 billion rupees across federal, provincial and local bodies, as well as various constitutional and public organizations. However, due to protests and incidents on September 8 and 9, records from 179 offices were not submitted, leaving 147,900 billion rupees unaudited, while irregularities worth 88,900 billion rupees were identified, along with significant deficits across all tiers of government. Despite these issues, authorities reported a recovery of 14.63 billion rupees from past discrepancies, while audits covering 2,917.95 billion rupees were completed for 3,050 federal ministries and agencies. As Nepal prepares to unveil its national budget in late May, questions are already emerging over whether the government's newly announced priorities will finally translate into effective implementation after years of policy continuity challenges and weak execution. We will bring more on this in our segment cover story of the day later in the bulletin. Now, Nepal's government has officially reduced the number of federal ministries from 22 to 18 under a broader administrative restructuring amid at cutting public expenditure and improving governance efficiency. The downsizing drive is now being implemented at the provincial level, as well as with Bagmati province reducing its ministries from 14 to 8 and Lumini province also deciding to limit its cabinet to 8 ministries from the upcoming fiscal year. Provincial governments say the restructuring is intended to lower administrative costs, streamline service delivery and redirect more resources toward infrastructure and capital development projects. The move marks one of the most significant institutional restructuring efforts since Nepal adopted its federal system in 2015. We will bring more on this in our segment issue of the day later in the bulletin. The United States has rejected Iran's 14-point peace proposal to end the war and has once again reiterated its coercive stance, particularly regarding the nuclear issue. According to Iranian daily newspaper Tehran Times, the first stage reportedly aims to end war on all fronts, and only if Iran's conditions are met, with the second stage commencing if it incorporates discussing the nuclear issue in Iran's proposed two-stage negotiation process. The plan was submitted as a counter-proposal to the US's 9-point proposal earlier this month and was delivered through Pakistani mediators. While Washington's plan reportedly calls for a 2-month ceasefire, Tehran requested a 30-day timeline to resolve key issues, according to reports, insisting that talks focus on ending the war rather than a temporary truce. Nepal's National Sports Council, NSC, has lifted the suspension imposed on the leadership of the All Nepal Football Association, ANFA, ending a dispute that had disrupted the country's football administration. The decision was reached during a high-level meeting attended by Education and Sports Minister Sasmit Pokhrel, Council's member Secretary Ramcharitra Mehta and ANFA officials. According to ANFA spokesperson Suresh Shah, the suspension has been withdrawn unconditionally, restoring normal governance within the football body. The move is expected to revive stalled football activities and improve coordination between the governing bodies. It also raises the possibility of Nepal's women's national team participating in the upcoming SAF Women's Championship, a key regional tournament in South Asia. As Nepal moves forward to downsizing its federal and provincial cabinets in a bid to reduce cost and streamline governance, the concerns have been raised. Will fewer ministries lead to greater efficiency? We will explore Nepal's latest restructuring drive more in our Issue of the Day segment after this break. Welcome back. You're watching NTV World News Hour. I'm Diksha Awasthi. Now on to Issue of the Day. As Nepal is undergoing a major administrative overhaul after the government reduced the number of federal ministries from 22 to 18. The major administrative restructuring is now underway. The new Administrative of Nepal Work Division Regulations 2083. The revised framework published in the official gazette keeps 8 ministries unchanged while merging and reorganizing several others alongside the creation of a new Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation. Under the changes, portfolios such as information technology, urban development, drinking water, physical infrastructure, agriculture, environment, and youth and sports have either been merged or redistributed across new structures. The government says the move is aimed at streamlining governance, reducing duplication, and improving administrative efficiency through a leaner cabinet structure. This latest overhaul continues a pattern of repeated ministerial reshuffles in Nepal since 2074 BS, when the number and structure of federal ministries have been revised multiple times. Following the federal government's decision to reduce the number of ministries from 22 to 18, the restructuring drive is now being implemented at the provincial level as well, including in Bagmati province. The Bagmati Provincial Cabinet, in a meeting on Tuesday, decided to reduce the number of ministries from 14 to 8 as part of a broader fiscal austerity and administrative reform agenda. According to provincial government spokesperson and Minister for Economic Affairs and Planning, Prabhat Tamang, several ministries have been merged and reorganized while key portfolios such as internal affairs, economic planning, infrastructure, health, agriculture and environment will remain in place. Officials say the move is aimed at cutting administrative costs and improving efficiency with an estimated saving of around 5 billion rupees redirected toward capital development. The new structure will be implemented from July 17 and remain in effect until the end of the current fiscal year, according to the provincial government. As Nepal's nationwide administrative restructuring in provinces continues to take effect, Lumbini now joins the reform process. Lumbini province government has decided to cut the number of ministries and limit its cabinet to 8 ministries as part of an effort to reduce administrative expenses. The decision reflects a broader shift toward leaner governance structures across Nepal's federal system, following recent administrative reforms at the national level. Let's know more from our colleague Rojina Rai and our local correspondent Dasrath Khimere in the story.
Several provincial governments in Nepal are actively working to reduce the number of ministries in an effort to make administration more cost-effective and efficient. One of the most notable examples is Bagmati province, which has decided to reduce its ministries from 14 to 8. Similar restructuring efforts are being discussed or partially implemented in other provinces, including Lumbini province. The Lumbini provincial government has decided to reduce the number of ministries to 8 starting from the new fiscal year on 17th July. The province currently has 12 ministries, including the Office of the Chief Minister and Council of Ministers. The move aims to support administrative reform by reducing unnecessary expenses, improving efficiency, and making governance more effective and streamlined.
मन्त्रालयहरू कुन कसरी अगाडि बढ्छन् भन्ने बारेमा चाहिँ के भने मन्त्रालयको नामाकरण गर्ने गरी त्यो स्पिडका साथ आज चाहिँ के भने सरकारले यो निर्णय गरेको छ.
The provision to reduce the number of ministries will also be included in the policies and programs for the upcoming fiscal year 2083-84. In addition to restructuring ministries, the government is preparing to complete the adjustment of directorates and offices under various ministries between 29th June and 4 July. Under the new government, ministries with similar responsibilities are expected to be merged. Provincial Chief Minister Chet Narayan Acharya stated the decision was made to ensure faster, more transparent and more efficient public service delivery.
एकातिर खर्च व्ययता हुन्छ भने दोस्रो कुरो भनेको धेरै अब त्यो सुशासनको क्षेत्रमा र जनसेवा प्रवाहको क्षेत्रमा काम गर्नको निम्ति पनि त्यसले सजिलो बनाउँछ.
Lumbini province initially had only 7 ministries. However, during its first term, the number increased to as many as 17. The reduction in ministries is expected to cut administrative costs, speed up decision-making, minimize the duplication of work, improve efficiency, and streamline policy coordination.
In this context, we ask the public what should be the number of ministries in the provincial governments. Let's have a look at what they say in today's Public Pulse.
केन्द्रीय सरकार भएपछि प्रदेशमा धेरै मन्त्रालय राख्नु आवश्यक छैन किनभने हामीले अर्थ सम्बन्धी वन तथा वातावरण कृषि सम्बन्धी त्यसरी गएर आवश्यकता के छ त्यो ठाउँको त्यो आवश्यकतालाई हेरेर एकदम मन्त्रालय एकदम छोड 5-7 वटा भन्दा बढी बढाउनु पर्ने.
त्यो सानो मुलुकमा हामीले 5 वटा 7 वटा भन्दा बढी चाहिँ राख्नु हुँदैन. भौगोलिक क्षेत्रको आधारमा पनि समन्वय गरेर राम्रोसँग राखेको राम्रो उचित जस्तो लाग्छ.
5 देखि 7 मन्त्रालय राखेर एउटा चुस्त दुरुस्त टिम बनाएर प्रदेशले लग्यो भने अब हामीलाई आर्थिक भार पनि कम होला.
शिक्षा, स्वास्थ्य र अनि सामाजिक सांस्कृतिक मन्त्रालय 3 वटा मन्त्रालय छुट्टै र मुख्यमन्त्री एउटा गरेर 4 वटा.
लुम्बिनी प्रदेशमा 12 वटा भन्दा पनि त्यसको ठ्याक्कै 6 वटा गरौँ र जुन हाम्रो आर्थिक व्यवस्थापन त्यसले हुन्छ र जुन हामीले जनताले गर्न खोजेको सरकार समक्ष पुर्याउन खोजेको धारणा एकद्वार प्रणाली पनि हामीले त्यसमा पाउन सक्छौँ र त्यसकारण सबैमा आर्थिकदेखि लिएर जनताको सँग सिधा सम्पर्क हुने भएकोले यो मन्त्रालयहरू घटाउँदा बेस्ट राम्रो छ.
भइरहेको 12-13 वटा मन्त्रालयलाई मिल्ने र मन्त्रालयगत कामहरू मिल्नेका आधारमा चाहिँ घटाएर कम गर्न सक्ने अवस्था चाहिँ छ. यो यसो गरियो भने चाहिँ जनतालाई पनि जनप्रतिनिधिहरूले चाहिँ अपेक्षा अनुसारको चाहिँ काम भइरहेछ भन्ने चाहिँ बुझ्छन् र सोही बमोजिम चाहिँ मन्त्रालय कम गर्ने, खर्चहरू कम गर्ने र प्रभावकारी कामलाई चाहिँ जोड दिन सकियो भने
प्रदेश सरकारले 7 मन्त्रालय 7 मन्त्रीको अवधारणा सहितको विकास मोडल धेरैभन्दा धेरै रोजगार दिन सक्ने मन्त्रालयको प्रदेशको रूपमा विकास हुनुपर्छ र 7 वटा प्रदेश मध्ये कुन चाहिँ प्रदेशले धेरैभन्दा धेरै कति जनतालाई रोजगारी दियो भन्ने खालको एउटा राम्रो सन्देश चाहिँ मन्त्रालयहरूले दिनुपर्छ।
That wraps up our issue of the day. On to the next segment now. With Nepal's budget session now underway, attention is turning to the government's priorities for the next fiscal year. From economic recovery and infrastructure spending to concerns over weak implementation and fiscal discipline, debate is intensifying inside Parliament ahead of the national budget announcement later this month. We will explore this more in the cover story after this break. Welcome back. You with NTV World News Hour. Now on to cover story. Nepal's federal parliament is currently in its budget session, which began on May 11 with the presentation of the government's policy and program for the upcoming fiscal year. The session marks the formal start of the national budget cycle for fiscal year 2026-27, with the full budget set to be presented later this month by the finance minister. Since its opening, lawmakers have been engaged in discussions on policy priorities, legislative proposals, and pre-budget allocations across key sectors of the economy. The government is holding consultations with ministries and planning authorities to finalize expenditure ceilings and sectoral priorities ahead of the budget's announcement. Opposition parties, meanwhile, have raised concerns over fiscal discipline, project implementation, and the equitable distribution of development funds, making the session politically significant. As Nepal prepares to unveil its national budget in the end of May, questions are already emerging over whether the government's newly announced priorities will finally translate into effective implementation after years of policy continuity challenges and weak execution. Suveksha Rajak with our correspondent Kamala Aryal brings a report.
It is often said that the morning weather can hint at how the day unfolds. And in a similar vein, attention is now focused on what kind of budget Nepal's government will unveil on Jyeshtha 15 as per the Nepali calendar. Ahead of the budget presentation, Finance Minister Dr. Swarnim Wagle tabled the government's budget priorities in the National Assembly on Thursday, outlining the broad policy direction for the upcoming fiscal year. While the minister presented 5 key principles and priorities, including good governance, economic reform, connectivity, human capital development, and strengthening soft power, economists caution that priorities alone do not determine outcomes unless implementation is effective.
सुशासनलाई नागरिकले प्रत्यक्ष अनुभूत गर्ने राज्यको नैतिक वैधता, सेवा दक्षता र आर्थिक सामर्थ्यका रूपमा स्थापित गर्नेछौँ। विधिको विवेकसम्मत शासन, संस्थागत कुशलता र सार्वजनिक सदाचारको सर्वोपरिता सुशासन प्रत्याभूतिको प्रस्थान बिन्दु हुनेछ। राज्यलाई उत्तरदायी र प्रविधि मैत्री बनाउँदै सुशासनको प्रत्यक्ष लाभ नागरिकको दैनिक जीवनमा अनुभूत हुने गरी शासकीय सुधारको श्रृङ्खला कार्यान्वयन गर्नेछौँ।
Economists say that in the past, political instability, coalition governments, and frequent changes in leadership often created gaps between budget formulation and implementation, weakening policy continuity.
सीमित हाम्रो साधन र स्रोत छ
त्यो गत सालको बजेटका प्राथमिकता र यसको बजेटका प्राथमिकतामा केही नाराहरूमा अलिकति फरक छ र बढी हाम्रो यो डिजिटल प्रविधि सूचना प्रविधि आइटी क्षेत्रलाई चाहिँ बढी फोकस गरिएको छ र अरू क्षेत्र जस्तै कृषिमा भयो अथवा स्वास्थ्य क्षेत्रमा भयो त्यसमा पुरानै नीति तथा कार्यक्रमहरू पुरानै जुन बजेटका जुन सिद्धान्तहरू थिए.
However, experts argue that despite repeated emphasis on ending fragmented budget allocation practices, concerns remain that many priorities, such as infrastructure development, digital governance, agriculture, and tourism, have been stated in similar terms in previous years without significant implementation gains.
That concludes our cover story of the day. Now the remaining updates. The government of Nepal has announced plans to develop parks, walkways, cycle lanes and green corridors on land cleared from encroachments riverbanks in the Kathmandu Valley. The ongoing campaign targets settlements and illegal structures along major rivers including the Bagmati, Vishnumati and Manohara as part of broader efforts for river conservation and flood risk reduction. Officials say the initiative aims to replace unplanned urban settlements with organized green public spaces, improving environmental conditions in the capital. Dr. Anand Singh Bhatt, chairperson of the Bagmati Civilization Integrated Committee, said the reclaimed land will be systematically developed into green corridors under the government plan. Authorities also confirmed that removals have been carried out in several areas following court orders and legal provisions, while further clearance work continues in other riverbanks locations across the valley. At least 2 people have been killed in a road accident in Dambrikhola area of Mandevi Rural Municipality in Bhutan district. The victims were traveling in a Maruti van that lost control while moving along the Devisthan Dang road section and plunged about 200 meters off the road before hitting a tree. Police confirmed that the driver, 24-year-old Dilip Pariyar, and passenger, 26-year-old Abhishek Kaur, died on the spot. A police team reached the incident site shortly after receiving information and has begun preliminary investigation. Authorities say they are working to determine the exact cause of the crash. A 6-year-old girl has died after consuming wild mushrooms in Icha Manakamana Rural Municipality of Chitwan district in Nepal. The victim, identified as Namuna Chepang, a grade 2 student, passed away this morning while 2 other family members have been seriously ill. Sajan Chepang and Manita Chepang, who also ate the mushrooms last Tuesday, are undergoing treatment at Bharatpur Hospital. The family's condition came to light only after the child's death, as they had remained at home despite falling sick. Doctors say wild mushrooms can contain the toxic compound amatoxin, which can cause severe liver failure and affect vital organs, including the brain and kidneys. Now, construction entrepreneurs in Nepal's Koshi province have staged a sit-in protest outside the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Planning, demanding either a revision of contract prices or an extension of project deadlines. Following the demonstration, representatives submitted a memorandum to Chief Minister Hikmat Kumar Karki and Provincial Minister Vidur Kumar Lingthang. The entrepreneurs say rising input costs have made ongoing infrastructure projects financially unsustainable. According to their association, fuel prices have surged by around 50% in the past month, while materials such as cement, iron rods, gravel and sand have also seen sharp increases. They argue that the price hike, partly linked to global oil market pressure following tensions in the Middle East, could severely impact the construction sector if no relief is provided. Exhibits showcasing Magar art, culture and traditions at the Palpa District Museum in Western Nepal are drawing increasing attention from domestic tourists. The displays include traditional clothing, household items, kitchen setups and materials reflecting marriage customs and daily life. According to Museum Chief Laxman Ghimire, the Magar section is helping preserve cultural practices that are gradually fading in rural communities. The collection is also serving as an important learning resource from students, teachers, researchers and visitors. The Magar community has a significant presence across Palpa district in Lumini province, where it is settled in both municipalities and rural municipalities. Nepali cuisine and culture are gaining greater visibility across Europe through innovative individual and institutional efforts. In a new attempt aimed at promoting Nepal's tourism, traditions and hospitality in Portugal, a new cultural initiative, Journey to Nepal, has been launched in Lisbon, capital of Portugal. The campaign features authentic Nepali food, music, dance and cultural performances designed to introduce Portuguese audiences to Nepal's heritage and national beauty. The campaign also aims to raise funds for disadvantaged and orphaned children in Nepal and Portugal. Portuguese officials, business leaders and media representatives attended the event, reflecting growing interest in Nepali culture within Portugal. Now, international news coming up next, but before that, a quick look at our headlines. Nepal government invites Gen Z for dialogue on constitutional amendment, clarifies process as consultations enter final stage. Nepal's unaccounted public funds cross 7 trillion mark, Auditor General flags widespread financial irregularities. Nepal outlines budget priorities ahead of May end presentation. Experts raise questions over implementation. Nepal government pushes administrative reform for efficiency and cost reduction. Province governments downsizing the number of ministries. US rejects Iran's 14-point peace proposal. The nuclear issue remains a sticking point as Iran talks stall. And Nepal Sports Council lifts ANFA suspension. Move restores normal football governance. US President Donald Trump has headed back to Washington, wrapping up high-level talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping focused on trade and bilateral ties. President Trump said that the two sides had reached fantastic trade deals during the summit.
这次的访问是一个历史性的、标志性的访问。这个迄今我们已经达成了一个新的两国关系，就是建设性的战略稳定关系。这个可以说是一个里程碑式的这个访问的事件，而且我们达成了很多这个合作的成果的文件。
I want to thank you very much. This has been an incredible visit. I think a lot of good has come of it. We've made some fantastic trade deals, great for both countries.
While Trump did not immediately disclose the details of the trade agreements, in a Fox interview later, he mentioned that one of the business deals included Xi agreeing to purchase 200 big Boeing jets. The U.S. president also said Beijing had also shown interest in buying U.S. oil and soybeans. China's foreign ministry did not confirm or deny the information. In other update from the region, Israel and Lebanon concluded the third round of peace talks on Thursday at the U.S. Department, which lasted over 8 hours. The U.S. mediation of the talks was led by U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee, Secretary of State Marco Rubio's advisor, The Israeli delegation included Israel's ambassador to the U.S., while the Lebanese delegation comprised Lebanon's foreign ambassador to the U.S., Simon Karam, among others. Israel reportedly wants to preserve freedom to carry out air and ground operations against Hezbollah until an agreement is reached, while Lebanon is demanding an Israeli withdrawal from its territory, a halt to Israeli strikes, and an end to the destruction of villages near the border. The talks are expected to continue on Friday, though it was unclear whether the sides were close enough to make progress. Russia and Ukraine exchanged 205 prisoners of war each on Friday. The Russian Defense Ministry said in a statement on social media that 205 Russian servicemen were returned from territory controlled by Kyiv, adding that in exchange 205 Ukrainian armed forces prisoners of war were transferred. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said on Telegram most of the Ukrainians handed over had been in Russia captivity since 2022. According to Zelensky, this is the first phase of the 1,000 for 1,000 prisoner exchange. Moscow's defense ministry said its troops were brought to its ally Belarus, where they are receiving the necessary psychological and medical assistance. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrived in the UAE escorted by military planes on Friday as he begins a 5-nation tour including the Netherlands, Sweden, Norway and Italy. Modi was escorted by military aircraft upon entering UAE airspace and was welcomed with a guard of honor by UAE President Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. During bilateral talks, the two leaders discussed energy cooperation, trade relations and other issues of multiple importance. In his remarks, Modi condemned recent attacks on the UAE as unacceptable and reaffirmed India's support for the Emirates during a period of growing regional instability. He also said dialogue and diplomacy remain the only solution to the current global conflicts and stressed that India-UAE comprehensive strategic partnership continues to expand across multiple sectors. A deadly outbreak of the Ebola virus has been confirmed in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, African health authorities said Friday. The Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention said 246 suspected cases and 65 deaths have been reported in Ituri province, including 4 deaths among laboratory-confirmed cases. The health agency said the Ebola virus disease outbreak was confirmed in Ituri province. The Africa CDC said it is closely monitoring the situation and has convened an urgent high-level coordination meeting with the DRC, Uganda, South Sudan and global partners to reinforce cross-border surveillance, preparedness and outbreak response efforts. First identified in 1976 and thought to have crossed over from bats, Ebola is a deadly viral disease spread through direct contact with bodily fluids, causing severe bleeding and organ failure. Palestinians in the Gaza Strip marked the 78th anniversary of Nakba Day on May 15, with marchers calling for the right to return to their homeland. Demonstrators dressed in traditional Palestinian clothing carried symbolic keys representing homes lost during the mass displacement that followed the creation of Israel in 1948. About 700,000 Palestinians were displaced during the conflict surrounding Israel's founding, an event Palestinians refer to as the Nakba or catastrophe. Commemorations were held across several locations in Gaza as the territory continues to face widespread destruction from nearly 2 years of war between Israel and Hamas. A United Nations agency says more than 3/4 of homes in Gaza have been damaged during the conflict, displacing large numbers of Palestinians once again. Scientists have identified a massive new dinosaur from remains discovered in Thailand, with the creature estimated to have weighed as much as 9 adult elephants. A long-necked herbivore stretched 27 meters, that is 88 feet, and weighed about 27 tons, according to a study published in the journal Scientific Reports. According to the researchers, it probably roamed the current area of Thailand between 100 and 120 million years ago and is the largest ever found in Southeast Asia. The first remains of the enormous creature were unearthed a decade ago by locals in northeast Thailand, but the excavation was not completed until 2024, according to the study published Thursday. A life-size reconstruction is on display at Bangkok's Dinosaur Museum, according to UCL. Business news coming up next. For now, a short breather.
India's state-run oil companies has raised petrol and diesel prices by more than 3% as the Iran war continues to disrupt global energy supplies and increase pressure on the country's economy. The hike, the first since the conflict began in February, comes amid concerns over rising import costs after Iran's near-total blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, a route through which India normally imports nearly half of its crude oil. Oil companies said they have been suffering losses due to soaring global crude prices, while the government has also raised cooking gas prices and introduced austerity measures aimed at reducing fuel consumption and conserving foreign exchange reserves. Authorities in Delhi announced partial work-from-home measures for government employees and urged residents to limit private vehicle use as fuel import costs continue to strain public finances. Meanwhile, India has increased imports of discounted Russian crude following a temporary U.S. sanctions waiver, but Indian Foreign Minister Subramanyam Jaishankar criticized unilateral sanctions, warning they disproportionately impact developing economies. China's zero-tariff treatment of all 53 African countries with which it maintains diplomatic ties has been boosting trade flows since taking effect on May 1st, with imports of fresh produce to China already seeing strong growth. Dozens of shipments of fresh produce from African countries have cleared customs at Beijing Capital Airport since the policy kicked in, including a consignment of live South African rock lobsters. According to airport customs officials, shipment had a dutiable value of 120,000 yuan, or about $17,500, and that customs authorities waived 6,104.91 yuan in duties under the new preferential policy. Officials say the zero-tariff policy is expected to further deepen China-Africa trade ties while opening wider access for African agricultural and seafood exports in the Chinese market. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs on Friday welcomed a new $1.8 billion funding allocation from the United States to support humanitarian operations worldwide. UN Emergency Relief Coordinator Tom Fletcher said the funding would help stabilize the global humanitarian system, which has been facing severe financial pressure and growing operational challenges. Fletcher said humanitarian agencies have already allocated $1.68 billion across 18 crises to deliver life-saving assistance to more than 22 million people, with more than 90% of the support directed towards the most vulnerable populations. According to the UN, more than 300 million people currently require humanitarian assistance worldwide as global aid funding continues to decline. As a strike at South Korea's Samsung Electronics looms, the government exerts pressure to resume mediation talks. The government continues to signal the message that a strike must be averted. Deputy Prime Minister for Economy, Koo Yeon-chol, said a strike at Samsung Electronics poses a significant risk to economic growth, exports, and financial markets across the board. After mediation talks fell through, the presidential office, the Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, and even the Labour Minister are all exerting pressure. Though the first round collapsed, the procedure can restart if both sides consent. The Labour Union said it will engage in talks if a concrete plan on removing the payout cap, establishing a standardized bonus system, and ensuring transparency is presented.
Time for a sports update. Tennis player Pradeep Khadka and 800-meter athlete Narayani Bhandari have been named the best male and female players of the year at the 10th Rara Pokhara Sports Awards in Nepal's Gandaki province. The awards were organized by the Nepal Sports Journalist Forum NSJF Gandaki, with Khadka and Bhandari emerging ahead of strong contenders from judo, volleyball, archery and cricket. Bhandari, a national record holder and gold medalist, also featured in the People's Choice Award category, which was won by footballer Rajan Darlami through public voting via the Khalti app. Badminton player Nibha Rai was named Best Emerging Player, while Siddhant Adhikari of Athletics won Best Coach, and the Kasket District Cricket Association was recognized as Best Sports Organization. Winners in major categories received scooters along with trophies, while several other award recipients were also honored with cash prizes and special recognition for their contributions to Nepali sports. And now the weather updates, first from across Nepal and then the world. And before we wrap up, here's a reminder of our top stories. Nepal government invites Gen Z for dialogue on constitutional amendment, clarifies process as consultations enter final stage. Nepal's unaccounted public funds cross 7 trillion mark. Auditor General flags widespread financial irregularities. Nepal outlines budget priorities ahead of May end presentation. Experts raise questions over implementation. Nepal government pushes administrative reform for efficiency and cost reduction. Province governments downsizing the number of ministries. US rejects Iran's 14-point peace proposal. Nuclear issue remains sticking point as war talks stall. And Nepal Sports Council lifts ANFA suspension. Move restores normal football governance. That's it for this edition of NTV News Hour. Do join us through our official social sites and get the latest updates from our website, nepaltelevision.com. Thank you for staying with us. Have a wonderful time ahead.